Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word. I'm grinning already, and to the first race reaction of 2022. Not a bad start to the season, that one. So many positives for, I think, us as fans, unless you're a fan of maybe Red Bull, might have hurt a little bit towards the end there. But I think in general, as you know, as neutrals, I think that was fantastic start to the season. These cars look great. They look like they can follow as well. So, some great stuff out there. So happy to see Formula One back. And I'm just ready to sit here and talk to you all about it as much as possible. First things first, thank you so much to Charles Edward Cheese, who was so quick today, he beat me to it, for your super chat, mate. I will read that very, very shortly, but thank you so much for that incredibly generous donation. If you want to call it that, or contribution, but always appreciated, mate. And thank you to everyone for tuning in today. Great to see so many here for this first race reaction of the year. Feels so good to be back. I love this stuff. I love Formula One. I'm going to kick off with the race result, but before I do that, before I read it rather, I will just say this. This graphic that I'm going to put up, I'm going to change that before the next one, because I think the different typefaces, if you want to call it that, kind of make it look a little bit bleh. So I might be changing that back to just surnames, but that doesn't really matter. So Charles Leclerc, Ferrari is back, everybody. Winner of the 2022 Bahrain Grand Prix in excellent fashion. That scrap between him and Max was absolutely... more of that, please. Carlos Sainz is second place. No, your eyes do not deceive you. That is a Ferrari 1-2, the first time since Singapore 2019, I think it was, as Crofty kept telling us. Lewis Hamilton, I think you might argue the first legitimate one for a while. Let's not get into that. Lewis Hamilton, third place. I think if you'd have offered him that this morning, he would have absolutely ripped your hands off for it. George Russell in fourth place there. Kevin Bloody Magnussen, fifth place. I mean, as fairy tales go, come on. That's incredible. 10 points for Haas, which is already 10 points more than they scored last year. Valtteri Bottas as well. What a weekend from him. 6th place in the Alfa Romeo. Esteban Ocon in 7th. Yes, Alpine are in pink there, and they're staying in pink because it looks great. Yuki Tsunoda in 8th. Really good result there for him, actually. And some good early points on the board. Settle some early nerves maybe for this season after a bit of a scrappy 2021. Let's not worry about 21. We're in 22 now. Fernando Alonso, couple of points there. Zhou Guan Yu, 10th place for him in the Alfa Romeo. Mick Schumacher 11th, so close really to his first points. Looks okay actually today. Mick was impressed with him, but he's got his work cut out taming K-Mag, hasn't he? 12th place for Lance Stroll. 13th for Alexander Albon, the highest Williams. Not a bad result. Again, another driver who's done a pretty solid job this weekend. McLaren, 14th and 15th, and I think halfway through that race they probably have taken that, to be honest. Not good at all. Nicholas Latifi in 16th, Nico Hulkenberg in 17th, and then your DNFs. Wow. Sergio Perez on the last lap with an engine issue that locked up the rears and put him into a spin. Max Verstappen with a couple of laps to go, or maybe a few more than a couple, but pretty much towards the end. He had a mechanical issue. Sounds like they were related to 2 Red Bull problems. He was out of the race, and Pierre Gasly's car lost all power and eventually caught fire. So absolute disaster for Red Bull powertrains in their opening weekend. I'll say that Yuki got 8th. I mean, he got some points, didn't he, did Yuki? So not all absolutely horrendous for him. Better get a guest on, really, hadn't I? So we can do some waffling together. Jonty, we talked about this the other day, as I'm sure you remember. I think it was yesterday. Your first ever stream with me was a video or a stream looking ahead to the new proposed 2021 regulations. More than 1,500 days later, we're finally here, mate. What did you make of that? Brilliant stuff.
Yeah, 1,582 days later, we finally see the first race with those regulations. I'm not saying it's taken them a while, but it hasn't been the quickest, has it?
No, it's bloody taken long enough, hasn't it? But yeah, I mean, what I think, before we get into sort of team by team, I think the big positive to take away from this whole weekend and also that race is that these cars, they can follow and they can race. Obviously, early days, we'll see what it's like at other tracks, but for Bahrain at least, it's a big positive step, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's been a massive positive step. It's gone pretty much how I expected. As we said during the predictions game, someone's going to get it very, very right. Someone's going to get it very wrong, and we'll have a bit of a spread in the middle. But even with that spread, everyone seems to be much closer together. And you'd have put your house on it not being McLaren that got it very wrong.
Well, I did some blind predictions back in January, February time, and I put McLaren 4th. People go, oh, you're really underrating them. They're going to be right in this championship fight. McLaren versus Ferrari back to the glory days. I'd love to have seen that. They're nowhere near, certainly based on this weekend. I know they've had their issues with their brakes. I know they didn't have a great test either. It's just not really worked out for them. Daniel Ricciardo, probably still recovering a little bit from his COVID. So, and that's not an excuse, but it'll be a reason behind some of it. But just nowhere today. It was horrendous. But we'll talk about them shortly. We'll kick this off though. I mean, one team, just to take that point really, Jonty, who seems to have got it absolutely bang on, is Ferrari, which I think when that car was launched, I think I felt more confident about my predictions than I'd ever felt, and I'm feeling grinning from ear to ear, very, very good, because it's been a long time since we've seen Ferrari up there as the big title, as potential title contenders. 2019, their last 1-2, I said cheekily at the start there, Jonty, possibly their first legitimate 1-2 for a while, depending how you feel about that 2019 power unit. But Charles Leclerc today, absolutely superb, and that fighting with Max. I mean, if we can have that every weekend, a couple of drivers at the front, and I know that's asking a lot, but what a brilliant bit of driving. Brilliant stuff from Max, super aggressive, great, clever defensive play from Charles. We could be in for a very special season here,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the best thing about that fight between Max and Charles was the fact that Charles has clearly cooled down a little bit when in combat. We've seen him in the past be a little bit snatchy on the steering or make the odd iffy move that's a bit too aggressive. Today, he won that by just being patient, knowing that Max would be aggressive and just hung it out wide. Went, there you go, take your shot. Oh, you've locked up. Sorry. He absolutely played him and won. If we can have that every race, oh, it's going to be fantastic. And if anyone else can get involved, even better.
Yeah, that's a fair point actually on Charles' aggressiveness. I think you said before in conversations we've had that you were a little bit concerned that perhaps he's got a bit too aggressive in there, a bit too much of an aggressive streak in there. But I mean, that's going to set us up for some great racing potentially. But I think, really clever play. I mean, it's one of the best bits about Bahrain, isn't it? Is that DRS, the way they run the DRS. So you've got a chance to fight straight back. It's the same in Abu Dhabi, isn't it, as well? And I think it's the best way to do DRS. But just so clever from him, and I'm really impressed with him. And he looked in control, didn't he? I don't think he really ever, apart from that scrap that they had, I don't think he really looked under threat from Max Verstappen. He seemed to be in control. He kind of kept building those gaps of sort of 3, 4, 5 seconds, didn't he? And I know that we had that great scrap, and Max feels like he could have jumped him with the undercut at the second stop. But as it turns out, I actually think that Charles had that pretty much under control, or as in control as you can be when you've got Max Verstappen breathing down your neck. I'd imagine that's a little bit nerve-wracking. But yeah, was there any point where you just thought Max has got this, or did it feel pretty much from start to finish that Charles had this in the bag?
I don't think I really felt at any point that Max had got it. He definitely had a chance. That car is quick. And it's very suited to both him and Perez, which is good to see. There was no real massive difference in the speed they can get out of it. And they had this strategy split, which probably made sense being the team behind. But yeah, as you said, Charles, he had pace in hand. If there was after the fight was done, that was it. He'd got the pace in hand and could just turn it up if he needed to, if the gap was getting a bit closer. And I don't know if you've seen it, but his team radio's come out from right at the end. As he was going around the last couple of corners, he gets on the team radio saying, "Oh, something wrong with the engine." An engineer replies, "Okay, copy." And he says, "Oh, only joking." It's like, wow. That shows how calm he was and how comfortable he felt being in the lead. I know it's the last lap with a few corners to go, but we've seen races lost later than that.
Excuse the language, but cheeky little shit. So someone's getting a pay cut on Monday. No, I bet that did put the wind in them, actually, given what happened, like you say, in 2019. I mean, whoa, that would have been nerve-wracking, wouldn't it? But bloody hell. I bet he got a clip round the ear roll when he got back in the garage. Yeah, I think really, really brilliant stuff. And the great fight. I'm going to keep banging on about that for days now. It was so much fun. And it's great to see Ferrari out there. And Carlos Sainz as well. I mean, drove very well. Didn't really see him in the fight, did he, for the top 2 positions? But I think he said afterwards that this weekend he felt a bit, I can't really think of what the words he would say, but it felt a bit sort of off the pace versus his teammate and others. So I don't think he was ever in the fight for that top 2. I think it was very much going to be Leclerc versus Verstappen all the way. But I still think he drove very well this weekend. Second place, he's going to be very happy with that. And Carlos Sainz, as we know, is one of those drivers who, when he hooks it up, and gets it right, he's always, if he's got a car that can win, he will compete for wins. That's what I've always felt that with Carlos Sainz. If he's got a car that can compete, he will compete for the best positions that car will give him. And this year it could well be wins. So I think, I mean, I don't know how you felt. It felt like an air of disappointment if you saw his interview afterwards, but at the same time, he can't be too disappointed with second place in the first race. 22 still to go. He could be right in this title fight, and I'd love to see that. So really great driving from Carlos, but I think I'm just blown away by Ferrari. And I'm going to steal Aldas's line again. I keep stealing it, but when Ferrari is winning, F1 just feels right again. Which no dig at Mercedes already, but it was just the way it feels for me growing up as Ferrari versus McLaren at the front. So over the moon with the result for them. But what did you make of Carlos today then? I suppose is the question I'm going to throw at you. Do you think, am I right? Was he never in that fight, or did I miss something huge? Which let's face it, if anyone's going to miss it, it's going to be me.
There possibly seemed a little bit of something missing out of his pace. Perhaps, he just didn't get the setup dialed quite as well as Charles did during practice. And that can be a tenth over the course of a lap. And when you look at the gaps over the race, before the safety car, that would be pretty close, maybe 2/10. He's still the newer person in the team, so Perhaps Charles is communicating a bit better. I don't know. Maybe Charles understands this car a bit better. But it's the first race. I'm sure that's just a quick early thing.
He'll be fine. I've got no doubt. I mean, I said all along when Sebastian Vettel was dropped, Carlos Sainz was the right man for Ferrari, and that was kind of proven last year, and I think it'll be proven again this year. He's fantastic in that car, and I think that is. I mean, I see a lot. I think Sky was saying, Mercedes has the strongest lineup, closely followed by Ferrari. In terms of a proven lineup, I think Ferrari have the strongest, because George Russell, we know, is a good driver, but I don't think we can say for certain he's going to nail it in that Mercedes, because he had one race in it in Sakir and he's had one this weekend, and we haven't seen what he can do there. So I think in terms of a proven lineup, I think Ferrari absolutely has the strongest. I'll just do a few super chats. I forgot to do them at the start there, but I'll do them quickly. Then we'll talk about Mercedes. Just your usual reminder, actually, anybody watching, if we don't get through every point in the race, it is a reaction, not a review. I prefer to do a reaction because I'm bound to miss something and get shouted at, so I'll just put that in there. So thank you very much to Charles Edward Cheese, like I say, who was here before I even was, so always appreciate it. Says, what's up, everybody? Good day. Just up here, going to grab bacon and watch the race. I'm in the dark on the results, so shush. So he's not even watched the stream or the race, and he still sent some money my way. So thank you so much, mate. Always appreciate it. Enjoy your bacon. I'm a little bit jealous, actually. I might come and join you for that one. Leave Jonty in charge. Elliot Crossan, sorry, thank you very much. Says, I am not very religious, but I think it's karma. Alexander Albon, Abu Dhabi 2021. Thank you very much, mate. I don't know, just changing my name. Hello, from testing streams. Probably been in other streams as well, but good to see you again. Says, actually a bit worried about the season. Seems like a return to a solid top six was fun to see. Did teams the Merc, Red Bull and Ferrari with a few podiums. Race was exciting, just worried that no teams, but then we'll win again. Also, let's go Haas. I mean, yes, we'll get to Haas. Oh, I've got so much to say about that one. Thank you as well to Shantanu, who has thoughts on Russell's race. Also, who do you think we can realistically expect? Or sorry, what could you think we can realistically expect from Haas right now? I've got my monitor at a different angle and I'm really struggling with super chats, so that's going to have to change back as well. It's all trial and error today for some reason, even though I've been doing this for about 5 years, but there you go. We will get to Russell. I promise we'll get to Russell, but thank you for your super chats there. Anything you want to add on Ferrari, Jonty? Obviously, we'll do Q&A a little bit later and I'll take some comments from chat in a moment, but anything you want to add to it? I'm just looking for my notes to see if there's anything apart from that incredible scrap between Charles and Max to really add to that, and Carlos doing a good job.
Well, the main thing to add about Ferrari is, I mean, after quali, a lot of us are joking about it on Twitter, saying, okay, yes, they've got a super fast car, they've got it on pole, but it's still Ferrari. How are they going to screw this one up? Partly tongue-in-cheek, but not without reason. And yet, they've worked on everything. The pit stops were quick and flawless. The strategy was sound. They responded to Red Bull moves when they needed to. They got the whole package down. That is really good to see from Ferrari, because the amount of times we've seen 2017, 18, 19, when they had a genuine shot at taking either driver or constructor's title. They had the car to do it, and they threw it in the bin with bad strategy, dodgy pit stops, this, that, and the other. They've got it down now.
That's a great point. It'll be interesting to see, won't it, how that differs if they are the chasing car. Are they going to be as keen to pull the trigger? It sounds terrible. It sounds really easy sat here in my little office, but it's easier to react to an undercut than it is to maybe be the one to go for that undercut, because you're taking a risk, aren't you? And wondering what they're going to do ahead. So it'll be interesting to see if they're willing to take that risk. But it's still fair on Ferrari, because we've seen in the past when teams have gone for an undercut and they've not reacted, or other teams haven't reacted, and then it's cost them a race. So I think that's a great point, actually, Jonty, on strategy. And people make jokes about Ferrari and how they're going to mess this one up, but they make that joke because so often they do mess it up. And some might argue strategy decisions of the past, and we're going back away here, but some might argue it cost Fernando Alonso a world championship in 2010. Covering off the wrong Red Bull, but that's with 12 years worth of hindsight, and 2012, that's with a lot of hindsight, of course, but it's kind of true. I will get to
the last point that we have to say is that the beauty of all this is having the best anthem on the podium. Let's be honest.
Well, it's the best anthem combination, isn't it? I find,
yeah,
because you kind of you kind of get this. What's the word? Bouncy. It's just bouncy right from the start, isn't it? Apparently, according to Ted Kravitz, thank you to those in Discord letting me know. Apparently, Carlos Sainz's car has been inspected by the FIA in the garage. That is
Right.
from Ted Kravitz, but
All of the cars get inspected by the FIA.
I shouldn't read, but thank you for letting me know in Discord. But that's not a huge surprise. That might be part of their way they're scrutineering this year. They're doing things a little bit differently, aren't they, in some areas? But we'll keep an eye on it anyway. But we will get to Mercedes. But I do have to talk about Red Bull. I usually do this in order, but I have to talk about Red Bull because it was such a defining moment of the race so late on. I mean, Red Bull are clearly in there, aren't they, Jonty, as a top two team alongside Ferrari right now as things stand. There's not much doubt about that. It was clearly Leclerc versus Verstappen for the win. Sainz and Perez behind, which was fine. They were the comfortable top four, if you like. I don't think many people thought anybody else was going to get into the mix there. Mercedes were a long way off for one reason or another. So that looks like the top two at the moment. And it was looking like some pretty solid points, second and fourth. So that's 18 and 12 points. A nice start to the season. Good opportunity for Red Bull to get the points on the board over a long season. And it all just started falling apart. So Max Verstappen steering issue, which was apparently caused by the team dropping him off the jacks, was caused in the pit stop, which gave him a steering wheel issue, which he was not happy with at all. And then he started to have issues with what he thought was the battery. The team have since said it's not related to the battery. That could, of course, change when that gets inspected a bit more. Started to lose power. You could see he was struggling anyway. And then the car just all of a sudden, on the run to the final corner, just slowed right down. And it was game over. And then Sergio Perez coming through the first corner on the last lap, trying to fend off Carlos Sainz for P2. Similar problem. Power goes, engine goes, and it all locks up the rears and puts him in a spin. I mean, that's... What can you say to that? I mean, in terms of... From a driver's point of view, they did about all they could today, so there's nothing on the drivers there for me at all. Of course there isn't. It's a reliability problem, but Red Bull clearly have the pace. They're clearly going to be in the early stages in the fights for regular wins, but what a way to end the first race of the season with just a few laps to go. It all just completely collapsed on them. I mean, what do you even say?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I've read a couple of things on Twitter suggesting it might actually be a fuel pump, a spec part of the fuel pump, which would be a big concern. But I'm not sure how much of that is actually spec. I thought it was only the fuel flow regulators which were. So I'll have to dig further into that, unless anyone else read something in chat.
Black Hawk those in there. Just sorry, Jonty, just saying, Ted reports that the Red Bull Racing issue was a fuel pump which is FIA supplied. FIA did not know that there is an issue with the pump and allowed teams to swap it last night. Part of the issue is that it isn't picking up all of the fuel from the tanks, and overheating causing it to fail. Might be tank design shape not helping. So I'm guessing that's what you were on with there, Jonty.
Yeah, I hadn't read that much detail, but yeah, that does make sense. And design shape, would possibly have some. The design of their fuel tank might possibly be influenced by the power unit, which would explain AlphaTauri.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not very technical, so I don't.
Yeah, I'm trying to think at the moment.
No, you're fine. No, you're all right, Jonty. Think what you like. But I mean, that's not a. I mean, if it's a design shape issue, or potentially not helping the issue, because obviously I know they changed it last night, because I think the FIA allowed them the extra hour, didn't they, to do that? So, is that something that can be solved in a short space of time, or is it because your fuel tank? I don't know how easy it is, and I'm sure somebody in chat, probably Blackhawks, will let me know, but I don't know how easy it is to just change the design of your fuel tank if you need to, if there is an issue there that they can try and resolve for Saudi, or is this something that could be a couple of races away from being solving? If so, then Ferrari are looking like they've got a great start to the season.
Yeah, it wouldn't be all that difficult to solve, but not in a week. And we've got a week gap to Australia, or is it a triple? No, it's just a double,
weeks,
isn't it?
Yeah, just a double.
Yeah, even that might be a stretch. And Jeddah's another hot one.
Yeah.
Another high, even more full throttle.
It's not. Well, I mean, Mercedes haven't got an easy fix. It looks like Red Bull haven't, but I mean, yeah, I don't. That's something that we need to look. We'll look into a bit more. Obviously, we can't really do that in a race reaction stream because there's probably going to be a lot more in that, and there'll be a lot more information around that in the coming hours and days. So hopefully, by the time we get to the preview on Thursday, I'll be able to tell you a little bit more. But at the moment,
but it's really bad, especially when they're both driven so well. They Ferrari have clearly got a few tenths over the Red Bull, and yet both Max and Sergio kept right with them. They didn't give them free space to make whatever strategy call they wanted, like we've seen Red Bull and Mercedes doing over the last few years. They made it difficult, which it's not as close at the front as everyone wanted, but it's certainly a lot closer than we have had.
Yeah, there's not. Ferrari couldn't make a mistake today, could they? Which, if Ferrari do have an advantage over Red Bull, that's what Red Bull have to do. And what I will always say about Red Bull, and I was thinking about this during the race actually, and pre-race, when you talk about rule changes, when you talk about Formula One as a whole, Red Bull are always sort of there, aren't they? If you think since 2009, they've been there, since the big rules reset then. They've always been sort of top 2 or top 3. They've been in the mix. They can always pick up a win. They're capable of picking up podiums. And if there is that deficit, that's what they need to be doing, is staying right behind Ferrari, making sure they can't afford to make a mistake and snapping at their heels. I'm not playing down, not putting Red Bull down because, they won the championship last year. I'm not putting them down. But what I'm saying is that they're always very good at snapping at teams' heels. And I think that might be what they need to do in this early stage of the season. And that's what they did today. So I think apart from the reliability issues, do you agree with me that it's looking good for Red Bull? They just obviously now have to sort those reliability issues out as swiftly as possible. Otherwise, it's not going to be looking quite so good.
Oh, yeah, they've got to get it sorted rapid. Because, as we've talked about before with the point system and how that works now, this is a major blow. It's not like just, there's 23 races, getting nothing from one isn't all that bad. No, getting nothing from one is majorly bad because it's such a bigger amount of points.
It's just
I'm sure they'll get it sorted fairly quick. I've seen some stuff from Blackhawk suggesting it might be with regard to the E10 fuel, which makes a lot of sense because it's all super on the edge of what they can get away with, and it's the fuel around it that cools it whilst in the tank, so the pump overheated. But I'm not sure how they're going to get around that. Perhaps moving the pump lower, but no, that doesn't sound right either. It's going to be a difficult fix, but they can do it pretty quickly if it's pump placement and or tank shape. But if there's anything more than that, it's going to be very, very difficult.
Yeah. So I guess my favourite line, watch this space in the coming days, I suppose, is the way to that one. Also, thank you very much to, I'm going to just changing my name rather than adding the IDK. Thank you very much for your super chats. It's crazy how previously strong engines, Mercedes and Red Bull now seem weak. Were changes allowed? McLaren must be upset. No way Ferrari lets McLaren in, though. Thank you very much, mate. The engine is an interesting one because obviously Ferrari have kind of got this new one. The E10 fuel is thrown in there, which adds a variable. There's just so many variables in this season I absolutely love. I'm going to throw a variable into the stream now. Do you like the segue? I think that was really, really good. It's been a while, but we'll have him on. I think he's just hot from one podcast straight over to the live stream. Good evening, Aldas, mate. How did you find that one?
Good evening. Well, first of all, is my volume okay? Because this is all happening live, which is a bit different for us, isn't it?
Yeah. Normally we have about an 8-hour chat before and sort it all out then. But yeah, everything's fine my end. I'll tweak things as I need to as I go, but all good at the minute, mate.
Hello, Aldas.
I mean, again, also, yeah, good to see Jonty as well. I mean, it's just, thank you so much for getting me on because, sorry about the short notice. Literally hopped from one podcast straight onto this stream, but the problem is that whenever I come on Sean's channel, it is always with boring races. Like the last 2 streams have been, I think, like terrible races. So I had to come on, and thank you again so much for allowing me to kind of sub in a little bit late.
No, it's always a pleasure, mate. Always a pleasure. And I think you've picked a cracker this time for a change, rather than like France, which tends to be the way it goes.
I think it was Spain 2020 was the one where I was like, oh, brilliant.
What have I done? What have I done? Yeah, I mean, we've just been talking about Ferrari and Red Bull. We'll get on to Mercedes in a minute. But is there anything you wanted to say about Ferrari and Red Bull before we kick on?
I love that the hype that they lived up to it, because we were all hopeful. It's kind of funny in retrospect that everyone was hopeful to see the most successful team of all time with the most championships, the most podiums, and the most wins to be back at the top in F1. But we were, because it's always good when Ferrari is winning. Charles Leclerc, I feel like he's been ready to win championships for a very long time. And just to see him back, I mean, fighting for wins yet again. I mean, it's kind of 2019 all over again. It's been such a shame not to see him there. But yeah, it's been incredible to see Ferrari back. Great to see Red Bull kind of up there as well. So I'm so happy that everything lived up to our expectations, and the battle as well between Max and Charles was just incredible. So for the moment, the cars also seem to be working. It's just a good day for F1, and it's a good day for Formula One fans. It's almost too good to be true at the moment.
I keep stealing your line, by the way, about how when Ferrari is winning, everything feels right in Formula One. So that's my line for the season. So apologies for that. But
copyright Aldas.
Oh crap, not you. It's bad enough with FOM. I don't need that as well. Max saying bonus Aldas. That's what we'll call this, bonus Aldas. Yeah, let's get on to Mercedes, because I've got to get on to K-Mag as well before my head explodes, because I can't believe the weekend he's had. Lewis Hamilton, third place. I said in the rundown, Jonty, that if you'd have offered him that at the start of the weekend, he'd probably have absolutely ripped your hand off for it. I mean, that is, I know he got lucky, if you like, with, I'm not going to say the line, don't worry. I know he got lucky with, obviously, the Red Bull issues towards the end. But are you as surprised as me that Mercedes have got this, despite a third place today, so spectacularly wrong, or what feels like so spectacularly wrong?
I don't think they've got it spectacularly wrong. I think they've got it right. They just, to a lesser extent of what Williams had in 2019, they're struggling to understand their own car. The speed is definitely in the Mercedes. We know that. We saw it in testing. We saw it in quali. We saw it today. But they just don't know how to get all of the speed out of it yet. We've seen them taking ages to try and tune out the porpoising. It looks very twitchy and in the corners. They will sort it out. It's just going to take them time. The big question is, can they get it sorted? Can they get to grips with what their car has got in time? How much of a lead will Ferrari and Red Bull have by that point?
Yeah, because, I mean, Martin Brundle's pretty adamant, isn't he, that the speed is in that car, or he thinks that car will have the speed in it. It's just getting to understand it. But it's I suppose horribly wrong is harsh, but by Mercedes standards, it is kind of horribly wrong for me. And I think as well, what makes it worse in my mind is that they apparently didn't write off last season, but most of their focus was on 2022, and they've still not really understood the car. But then brand new cars, brand new regulations. It's always going to be the case, isn't it, that some teams are going to absolutely understand their cars pretty much immediately, smash it out of the park, and others are going to take a bit of time. But 23 race season, even if they struggle for the first 5, still 18 races after that for them to bring themselves back into play. And if anybody's going to, it's going to be Mercedes. So, I mean, write them off at your peril, I suppose, is my argument there. But what did you make of Hamilton's race today, Aldas, and Russell as well? I mean, I think difficult at times for him, but obviously the car's not really understanding that car at the moment, but still I think decent. I mean, right behind Lewis Hamilton towards the end there. Some good points on the board early on. A steady but solid start. Is that fair, or am I harsh on George?
I think I'll get to really quickly to George and Lewis in a second, but just off the back of what Jonty said, I totally agree on the Mercedes. I think that is not a slow car. That is a very good car, but one that's, I think, got a narrow operating window. I feel like with the Red Bull and the Ferrari, both of their drivers, or all of the drivers, just jumped in and they were immediately quick right from lap 1. The Ferrari guys especially, I mean, they struggled not to be in like the top 5 or top 3 of the quickest times every single day. So you can see that car is just effortlessly quick, is kind of the word that I've used. I think the Mercedes is just a bit more of a diva. I'm not sure if this is the right kind of metaphor for this, but there's kind of that saying where it's always better to have an unreliable but quick car instead of the other way around, because it's always easier to sort out reliability than find performance. And I feel like Mercedes, even though I'm not sure if this is technically a reliability issue, well, it's not, but it's kind of a similar in terms of the metaphor, in terms of that's what they have to sort out. They do have a quick car. There is potential. There's no doubt that they're going to win races. The Mercedes engine surprised me a little bit, the power unit, because I think actually Ferrari and Red Bull now almost jumped them on that department. But yeah, I think it's just going to be a case of waiting for Mercedes. There's no doubt that they're affected still a little bit more by the porpoising, and especially under braking. That was very worrying, especially on Russell's side. Whenever they're on the brakes, the car is bouncing, and that loses you so much confidence as a driver, not just on qualifying laps, but on overtaking as well. So it's more difficult to kind of extract that performance and really use it up against slower cars. So yeah, it's just I think Mercedes are going to go through a little bit of a rough phase until they sort it out. I definitely trust them to do it, because I mean, they're only the 8-time world champions consecutively. So yeah, but it kind of adds another dynamic to the season. So perhaps we'll see Mercedes a little bit stronger in the last half of the season, and we kind of have that kind of Red Bull and Ferrari period now. But in terms of George Russell, I think actually I was a little bit disappointed, because I'm a massive George Russell fan. I've been hyping him up personally to be on the level of someone like a Verstappen and Leclerc. And ultimately, even though he did bottle that final lap in Q3, I think he does have the pace to be up there with Hamilton. I think he was really close in Q1 and Q2, but he bottled that final run in qualifying. P9 is not where he wants to be, and not where I want him to be as well. So yeah, he had kind of, I think, a first race to forget. There were some things that he could have done better. I definitely think the race went a lot better for him. He definitely kind of made up places a little bit quicker. But at the end of the day, it was, I think it was a great save by Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton, to be honest, I know that they did get lucky. Of course they did. But I was really impressed, to be honest, by Lewis, because on the back foot, in a slower car, he was always kind of attacking. He always seemed to be kind of the strongest of the Mercedes drivers. And if anything would happen to Sainz or Perez, Hamilton was kind of, there kind of ready to pounce it, also in terms of strategy. So yeah, it's a rough first race, but as you said, don't count out Mercedes. I think they've just got work to do, to be honest.
Yeah, a few people questioning the power unit in the chat as well. Obviously, you could see down the back, couldn't you? There are a lot of Mercedes-powered cars down there, so maybe that could be an E10 fuel thing. Getting to know that a little bit better as well. But I mean, look, I'm not writing Mercedes off. I'm not falling for that again. Ferrari have done this before, had great starts of the season, not quite as spectacular as this. And Mercedes have looked to be on the back foot, and they've come back. So I don't think you can ever write Mercedes off. And just to kind of pick up on your point there, Aldas, if Mercedes get their act together, or when they get their act together, I don't want the Red Bull Ferrari thing to be now. I want that to be Red Bull, Ferrari and Mercedes, because I think that would be such an incredible season. Imagine that for the remaining 18 races. Leclerc, Hamilton, Verstappen, Sainz, Perez and Russell. I mean, my mouth's almost watering thinking about that one. It's brilliant. So yeah, anything else to say on Mercedes, Jonty? I know I'm still a little bit surprised by how far off they are. The sandbagging thing's a bit of a joke, obviously. It's a bit of a meme at this point, but when they come out of testing and go, "Oh, we're really in trouble," you sort of go, "Yeah, whatever." We've heard all this before.
Well, yeah, it's like a lot of people saying in your chats, they come third and fourth. How is something terribly wrong? You've got to remember, as Alice said, this is 8 times in a row constructors champions, and 7 or more times in a row drivers champions. This is the absolute pinnacle top team, probably the biggest dominance we've ever seen in Formula One. So only sneaking on the podium by pure serendipity is not how they do business. To them, it really is terribly wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not saying that their result was terribly wrong today. The point I was making is that the car's not where it should be. I mean, they are third fastest. I mean, I would say as well pretty solidly third fastest. I don't think they're going to get caught behind at the moment. But, in that race, all right, they had the thing with the hards that they were trying around, but they were 20, 25, 30 seconds off the lead at the halfway point or something like that. So that's not where Mercedes should be. So I'm not saying that Mercedes, have had a terrible race. They've had a good race to be in that position to capitalise on the luck when it fell their way. But compared to the incredibly high standards they've set, they're a long way off where they should be. And if you've not seen the race and you're just looking at the result, then you probably think we're bonkers. But if you have watched the race, you should know that they were nowhere near a podium today at any point, and it's only because the Red Bulls retired that they were anywhere near that. So that's the point that I'm making. I'm not for a second saying that's a bad result. And actually, I said right at the start, Lewis Hamilton would have ripped your hand off for that if you'd have offered him that this morning. Because, you know, third place, it's 15 points in a car that is, at the moment at least, or at this weekend, third fastest at best and at worst, probably exactly where they are, third fastest. So if they can understand this car, get that in the zone, Jonty, then there's no reason why in 3, 4, 5 races time they won't be right up there fighting the Ferraris and the Red Bulls for wins.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned the hard tyres, because what the hell was that? Did they got them out of the freezer? Lewis looked like he was driving on blocks of stone. It was so little grip when he came out
with no
of the
tyre
pits.
covers next year if they get away with that.
Oh, God, it's going to be a disaster.
I can't wait.
Honestly, it was like Bambi on ice.
We're twisted. We're absolutely twisted. We'd enjoy seeing that. Let's move on, because we've taken 42 minutes of Ferrari, Red Bull, and Mercedes. Christ.
Yes,
Classic
but look where you're
F1
moving
work.
to.
Oh, I know. We've got to get there. Just a deep breath. Take a moment. Stay calm. I tell you what. First things first, 448 likes. Please do drop a like on the stream. We need to get to 500 for Charles Edward Cheese. So please do that. Always appreciated. Nearly 3,000 watching, actually. So let's get that like count up. Always appreciated. And don't forget subscribers as well. Lots coming up, including a Saudi Arabian Grand Prix preview next Thursday. We're going straight into another race weekend, which is fine because today was brilliant. So, Kevin the K-Mag Magnussen. 3 weeks ago, didn't have a drive in F1. He gets put into that Haas because, you know, reasons, we know why. He then hops into testing, sets the fastest time on his first day in that car, turns up to qualifying yesterday, smashed it out of the park, finishes P5 today. I mean, as fairy tale stories go, Aldas, that is absolutely incredible. I can't stop smiling for K-Mag. It's ridiculous. I'm so happy for him, but also so happy for Haas, seeing that smile back on Gunther Steiner's face as well in Part Ferme afterwards, or in the interviews afterwards. So pleased for Haas. They abandoned the whole of last year, so absolutely we should have been expecting them to make a leap forward, but they were so good today, particularly K-Mag. Massive points on the board, drove well. Couple of little moments with lockups and going too deep into turn one that could have cost him, but, you know, throughout that entire race, he was basically looking like he was going to be on for P7, which is just would have been amazing. So to get those extra couple of places at the end, courtesy of Red Bull's problems, just pops the cherry on top of that, doesn't it? I love you guys in chat. So most of you have known me long enough to know I love a fairy tale story. I love these comeback stories, and that's just the perfect one for K-Mag. Just brilliant all weekend. And I don't think I've seen him smile that much either, as he has over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's been smiling that much even when he was in Formula One the previous time, the way it ended. And you know what? It's a really weird feeling for me, because watching him come back and do an amazing job, which I always thought that he would do. Like, the moment he got announced, I was like, this is a proper driver now in that team. It actually leaves me a tiny bit frustrated and also disappointed, because he never should have been dropped. He never should have been.
100%
He still should have been at the team. I know why he was dropped. I totally understand the reasons why Haas ended up with that driver lineup. I think in terms of Roman, I think his time it was time for him to go, there's no doubt. But I think for Roman, I think he should have been kept for 2021, but we know why he had to be dropped. He had to almost be dropped by the team to kind of get Nikita Mazepin in there, kind of. And obviously, with taking the F2 champion, no one is going to kind of look at you twice for doing that. But it just makes me feel sad that he ever left. You know, he shouldn't have ever been gone. He's still someone that has many years ahead of him. And there's actually something I said on Twitter, I think after qualifying, in regard to both Magnussen, Hulkenberg, and even Alex Albon. Quality drivers will always be quality drivers. Like, these guys, you know, Nico Hulkenberg is a bit of a different situation, obviously, but especially K-Mag and Albon, you know, they've just jumped into those teams, didn't even, you know, haven't driven last year, haven't driven in Formula One for a year, and they've just come in and already looked stronger than their teammates, you know, and in terms of Kevin Magnussen, with limited testing when we really think about it. So quality drivers will always be quality drivers, and I'm just excited to see him back. This is just him on the back foot. This is him not knowing that he was going to be in F1 3 weeks ago. So what is he going to be like, you know, midway through the season, at the end of the season? I think there are some very, very exciting times ahead for K-Mag in 2022. And potentially a podium. I mean, I'd love to see it.
Well, Gunther Steiner actually said to Ted afterwards, I think it was Gunther Steiner, said that if that's what he can do after a whole season out of an F1 car, then they would have been on the podium today if he'd have stayed in that car. So there you go. And I tend to agree. I mean, what a performance. I mean, you couldn't make it up. And to be fair as well, Mick Schumacher, 11th place. When you see K-Mag in 5th, you sort of see 11th and you go, oh, that's not great from Mick. But he was in and around the action, wasn't he? And I think he's going to take some work for him to really get on top of K-Mag, to really be able to... This is the benchmark we needed for Mick. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. And I think he did an okay job today. I think... with all due respect, and it's a completely irrelevant point because he's not, but if Nikita Mazepin was in that car, he probably would have beaten him today. So 11th place would have been amazing from Mick Schumacher. But I think he's had a solid weekend, Mick, and it would have been nice to see him get a point. But I feel like those points are going to come, Jonty. I don't think that Haas is going to be missing out on point scoring opportunities this year too often. Certainly in the early stages, they're going to be in and around that point scoring spot. And if K-Mag can pick up a podium like Alda said there, I think my head would explode. I think he can handle that. It's enough that he got 5th.
Well, yeah. I mean, I remember after the late sessions during testing that they had to do, where they went out and stuck in the fastest times, whilst no one else was around. People were saying, "Oh, they're just running low fuel. They're just trying to grab a few headlines, just to make things look a bit better after the disaster that they've had for the last several weeks." And apparently, it wasn't. Apparently, that was real pace, as we found out. And there's another point. You mentioned the couple of lockups from K-Mag during the race. If you remember, he didn't get to do a second run in Q2 and was late coming out of Q3 because of a hydraulic issue with the brakes. I wonder if that's just a little niggle that's carried over and he was having to nurse it through the race. In which case, how much more pace was there?
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, no, that's a very fair point. If that's what he can do with potential niggling issues, then he's looking pretty good, isn't he, this season? So yeah, I mean, I
Yeah. And the other thing that I think about is, obviously the thing with getting Mazepin and Eurocali in had to happen to pretty much keep the team afloat. But my mind now thinks, with all of that effort and development they put into the 2022 car, how much better would it have been with a really experienced driver giving more feedback and input to it? Could that have been worth a couple more tenths to have kept K-Mag for that time if they'd have been able to stay afloat? It's such an awkward one. That's why the whole story around the team is so great and why everyone's so happy to see them do well now.
You always give me food for thought. You do it every time, Jonty. You'll come out with something and I go, hey, he's bloody right, I can't. Yeah, that's a great point. It's a very good point. I think I just don't know what else to add. All I can say, I don't remember... we had a lot of the fighting at the front, so we saw bits of K-Mag in the action, and after his pit stop, he cleared cars pretty swiftly, which was good. Got himself back up in there into 7th place it was at the time, and then kind of reaped the rewards at the end when it all went wrong for Red Bull. But I mean, just an absolutely brilliant weekend, and I don't know what to say. I've got nothing. I'm sorry. It's a reaction, and all I'm going to sit here going is, I love K-Mag now. He's my favourite.
And actually, now I think on that point, let's not forget, Mick got nerfed round onto lap 1.
He did, yeah.
That things like that can do tiny little things, just knock out the tracking, the camber, the toe, anything by half a degree, and it will ruin the handle in the car. Everything they put all that work into all through practice to get it right. So, that could well explain him struggling a bit further down.
Yeah, I mean, I was
Yes,
saving.
I'm finding excuses for them. Shut
No,
up.
that's fine. No, I was saving that for when we get to Ocon, because I want to ask about the penalty, which I don't think many people are going to disagree with. But no, it's a good point. That sort of thing. It cost him time as well. Although I must say, not as much time as it might have cost him, because he essentially did the 360 and then just carried on, didn't he? He was pointing the right way afterwards, which was quite funny.
Hell of a catch. Hell of a catch.
So it could have been 9.5 seconds off Zhou in 10th. Maybe could have nicked a point without that, but obviously that's all hypothetical. We'll never know. But massive congrats to K-Mag and Co. So before I get to the next one, let's see what you guys are saying in chat, because I've not actually spoken to you much, which is bad. And then I'll do some more super chats. Erim says McLaren was a disappointment. We will get to McLaren. I think very disappointing. Steve says Red Bull does seem to have a major issue. MSC had an amazing recovery early. That's what we're kind of on there. Absolutely. Let's see what you say a little bit further up. I see Charles has been raiding his dad's credit card again. Oh, Charles. Oh, I read it as Charles Leclerc. This Charles over cheese you're talking about. I'm going, really?
I thought you said, that's what I thought you meant.
I'm looking at it going, really? Did he stop at McDonald's on the way round or something? Sorry, totally missed that point. But yes, he has. Bless him. Thank you very much, Charles, once again. I've seen the word karma a lot in the chat. No comments. Mick got spun round opening that sighted canvas. Good to see you again. Yep, we've gone over that one. I underestimated Mag a lot, says Alex Spartan. I think people are just very surprised to see him back. When we were talking about who was going to take that seat, I think the feeling was it was going to be like a Hulkenberg or a Giovinazzi. So when that announcement came, I nearly fell off my chair. I was so excited to see K-Mag back, because I completely agree with Aldas. I don't think he should have been dropped. But at the same time, again, I think we all understand why they had to make that decision, really, in the end, didn't they? It was to do with money, and Mick Schumacher, the Ferrari ties, made sense to bring him in. Who was driver of the day? That was Charles Leclerc, I believe, was driver of the day. Albon says something about karma on Max, says Otso. I will check that one out a little bit later. Bottas' start was painful. We're getting there in just a second, Clansom. And did you talk about Charles pranking his race engineer by telling him about the race, the engine issues? Yes, we did. Jonty reminded me of that one, and I just said he was being cheeky. Very, very cheeky. Thank you very much to AC. Says, I just want a Ferrari season. I think a lot of the Tifosi would agree with you there. Thank you to Robert as well. Said, is this now guaranteed grid penalties for Red Bull later in the season, or will they be able to salvage these power units? Even more advantage Ferrari if they can't. That's a very good point. If this is it sounds like a fuel pump thing, though, doesn't it, at the moment? So it might not be. But if there are power unit issues, then maybe that's going to be more penalties. We saw what that could do last year. Let's not talk about last year. We're staying away from last year. I'm not doing it. Hamira as well says, Carlos is going to give Max more problems than Esteban gives Charles. That's going to be decisive over the long runs. Thank you very much for your super chats that have been coming in as well throughout the stream. So, another man who has absolutely blown me away this weekend, Valtteri Bottas. I mean, I said on Twitter after Bottas beats Russell in qualifying, you couldn't make it up. I mean, what a performance yesterday, and to carry that on today, it was nice and racy as well, wasn't he? It's almost like, not that he wasn't very good in the Mercedes, and not that he wasn't, picking up the odd pole here and being able to pick up a win last year and challenging for regular podiums, as we know, but it's almost like he's been let go. He's been let leash now. It's like, go on, Valtteri, you're leading this team, go crack on. Bangs in a cracking lap. I didn't think Alfa were going to be anywhere this weekend. I didn't expect them to be on the pace at all. Bangs in a cracking lap. 6th place. I mean, brilliant stuff from Valtteri, and that's coming from me.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Valtteri, it's almost as if, especially after what he's done in just this weekend alone, it's almost as if he's always been a great driver. It's just that Lewis Hamilton is bloody good. That might be an option as well. But yeah, he's always been a great driver, even back to his Williams days. So we knew he was going to be quality, but it is good now to see him kind of unleashed with his own team. And I feel like also kind of in a funny way, classic Bottas, like amazing in qualifying, absolutely bottled the start, if we're being honest. I don't know if you guys caught that as well, but he had a horrific start after a great quali. But actually, do you know what? For once, he didn't struggle to work his way through the field. I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I don't know if it's, again, the pressure off his shoulders, but he really did get his elbows out and was able to make up the places that he did lose. So that was great to see. But yeah, I got actually, I had the pleasure to actually talk to him myself, which was nuts during preseason testing, and he was just unbelievably calm, like the most chillest guy you have ever met. He does seem a lot more confident, and the thing that he said to me was that he's really having fun kind of throwing that car around. He's clearly got a lot more confidence in it, so that's really good, because with drivers, if you're not confident with your car, even if it's not a quick car necessarily, if it's got the right balance, you can kind of throw it around and kind of do bits with it. So he's definitely been able to do that. And it's just fantastic to see, to be honest, from both of the Alfa Romeo drivers, even for Zhou to get points or a point on his debut. That's fantastic. And just in general, I feel like as much as, and I do love Giovinazzi, and obviously we're all fans of Kimi Räikkönen, I think there might be a few questions, even kind of going off the back of what I said about K-Mag and what he's been able to do. I think there might be a few questions in terms of where do Alfa Romeo really belong? Is that car, certainly last year, I think they underperformed. And now I do think that for sure they have a driver in Bottas that 100% I think will get a huge amount out of that car. And also Zhou is looking promising as well now. So could we see, again, I talked about Magnussen on the podium. Could we see also Bottas on the podium as well in an Alfa Romeo? I mean, that would be amazing to see, and definitely don't count him out. He's a quality driver, and I think he's proving that yet again.
Well, what this weekend has done for me is just thrown any possible predictions out the window because, yeah, Bottas could. It sounds crazy. Like Alfa Romeo looked like, I think a lot of people put them last after testing, and here they are with pretty solid, 8 points on the board or 9 points on the board already. I mean, what a start to the year. I mean, his start to the race, as you say, was absolutely dreadful. Raul in chat just saying it was weird. He just went to every closing door, but it was a good recovery. And it's interesting because you said there about his fight back, and we'd seen in Mercedes when he'd ended up down the field, it would take him time to come back. I mean, that could be, Mercedes designed a car that was to be out front, wasn't it, rather than to follow. So that was part of that problem there. But I think also, could that be part of the new regulations that make it easier for these cars to follow, and therefore we get more action, and that's helped Bottas out there? That could be a big thing, as well as confidence. Of course, confidence is a thing. If he's got free reign in that team to crack on and not have to worry about going up again against, like you say, a pretty handy driver in Lewis Hamilton, I think it's all going to have worked his way, hasn't it? Really, it's all kind of worked out for Bottas. So really, really pleased to see him up there. And I'm glad you said about Zhou, because I think he was quite emotional, wasn't he, after the race, judging by some videos on social media, getting that first point for a Chinese driver, point on his debut. Fantastic stuff, absolutely fantastic. And I think Zhou might have. I don't think he was spectacular this weekend. I don't think anyone would say that he was, but I think he might have just shut a few people up with that. I think people thought he was going to be cut adrift at the back with, a Latifi, for example, but he performed today. He was nice and racy. He wasn't a million miles off his teammate at times. In fact, he wasn't even that far off in the end, considering he's a rookie. I think you're right. I think that's a solid debut, Aldas. But did you think they were gone? Did you think they were going to be the Haas of this year after testing, or was your chat with Bottas? Did you get some inside info? I'm winking, by the way. You can tell us. We won't tell anyone. I promise.
Well, I've got to keep some things close to my chest, you know that. But no, they sounded confident. And to be honest, the car did look good. It was just reliability in testing that was the problem. So I'm just very happy to see them kind of finish with zero problems. That's a really big positive. But on the Zhou front, I mean, clearly the car looks good, but he's a lot. If you compare him to Yuki Tsunoda last year really quickly, he's a lot better prepared. You can tell from his interviews, and you can also tell he's much more integrated into Formula One, into the environment of Formula One. He knows what it's all about to be a Formula One driver. He knows the dedication and the work. He's put a lot of time in, both physically and also with the team as well. So you can tell that Yuki Tsunoda last year, I think, and it kind of disappointed me, to be honest, and especially after we saw some things on Drive to Survive, he almost underestimated what it would take to be at the absolute pinnacle of motorsport. So hopefully he kind of learns this year, but Zhou definitely hasn't. Whether he has the speed or not, we're going to wait and see. Again, it's a really positive start. Yeah, he definitely didn't blow me away in terms of it was an incredible kind of debut performance, but it was solid. To get those points, that's a massive thing, especially your point. That's a massive thing in terms of your confidence, kind of, so people stop talking about when are you going to score? When are you going to score points? So yeah, I think overall, Zhou is in a really good position. Valtteri is just a solid rock in that team. He's got that long-term contract. He seems comfortable. It's a really good environment, and something that I definitely thought after the race is that we know kind of what the top three teams are in whatever order, Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes, depending on who's going to be quickest on what tracks. But I don't know who the best of the rest are. Who is the fourth quickest team? We don't actually know, and that's the exciting thing. And that means there's opportunities for teams like Haas, if all of their drivers put everything together, to kind of bag a really big result and have a really great comeback after a relatively mediocre kind of last couple of years. So yeah, a lot of excitement in Alfa Romeo, no doubt about it. And I'm just really happy to see that beautiful car as well, because I love that livery. They did it justice, that's for sure.
It's a gorgeous car. It absolutely is. Pradyumna says Zhou showed maturity and his racecraft seems promising. I think that's fair. And the thing with Yuki as well is that Yuki was rushed through, wasn't he? He came through so quickly to F1. So that time in F2 for Zhou has probably set him up quite nicely. But what did you make of Bottas and Zhou today, Jonty? Alfa as a whole? Have they surprised you a little bit?
They have surprised me a little bit. I genuinely didn't think Alfa would be up there this year. The last couple of years, they've kind of got a bit slower over sort of 2019, 2021. I did honestly expect them to carry that on this year with Williams moving forward. Certainly, Williams were better last year, so it's very surprising but welcome to see them doing well. Certainly with how happy Bottas seems in the team, and outside of a podium, it's pretty much a dream first race for any F1 rookie to get a point. It's absolutely outstanding stuff. And Alice is absolutely right. I knew Bottas just seems so much more, not in control, but just relaxed. He's got nothing to worry about here. He's the lead driver. There's no pressure to be going out. You've got to be up there with first so that you can protect them or cover strategy or anything. It's just give us the best you got. No pressure. That's got to be wonderful for any driver. It really has. And as I've said all along, Bottas has got class. He has got speed. His specialty is in qualifying. He is one of the best qualifiers on the grid right now, and possibly the last, 30, 40 years. I don't know if anyone saw the stat. 102 race weekends in a row, Bottas has got to Q3 unbroken. Wow.
Crazy.
That is an outstanding stat. And I've said it many times before, he can beat Lewis fair and square in equal machinery in qualifying. You've got to be special. You've got to be a special one-lap guy to do that. So it's great that he can just use it for himself as opposed to for the bigger view of the team or the other driver.
I think as well, it's, for me, what we've seen this weekend, and obviously, again, it's one race, we've got a long way to go, but what we've seen this weekend is just a reminder of what Bottas can do when he's team leader and what he can do when the pressure's off, what he was doing at Williams, before he made the move to Mercedes. And I'm not surprised by his performance, but I'm surprised the Alfa has got enough in it to allow him to do that. So I think Bottas can be so happy with what he's done this weekend. He really, really can.
Yeah, and like I said with Joe, it really is a dream start.
Yeah.
Outside of a podium, you cannot ask for more as a rookie. And the way the team responded to him coming back, all the hugs and what have you, it's just great to see a team enjoying it. Even though, it was it was 10th for Joe, wasn't it, at one point?
Yeah. Yeah.
But just to see the joy and elation in the team, especially after the hard years the team have had. Yeah, that's what we want to see at the end of an F1 race. We don't want to sit and wait for 3 hours for steward reports and this, that, and the other, or hear arguments. That's how we want to see it. It's awesome.
Timing on that one, Jonathan. Thank you for your super chat. It's Ocon, this year's Gasly. Discuss. Esteban Ocon. Good timing, Jonathan. Thank you very much. I'll get to that question in a second. 5-second penalty for the incident with Mick Schumacher. Kind of, it did smell, if you like, a little bit like a first lap incident, but if you're giving a penalty for that, there's only one driver ever getting that penalty, and that was Ocon. So I'm not really surprised at that one. Stewart's not taking any nonsense on that first lap. Potentially, as you say, Jonty compromised Mick's race, but I think the 5-second penalty is fair in that one for Esteban. He's still got seventh place, some good points on the board. Raced nicely as well, beat Fernando Alonso, which is good. Possible there was some talk in commentary that maybe they used some team orders early on because Ocon was quicker and Alonso kind of got out of the way, but nothing confirmed on that. I'll check for press releases in a minute, but yeah, just I think a good start to the season for Alpine, because they were another team, weren't they, Jonty, that people thought were going to be stuck down the back somewhere, but actually they've picked up some pretty good points today, and they seem to have some good pace in that car. Again, I know, safety cars mix things up with strategy, and people can take advantage of that, and 3 cars in front of the retiring has absolutely helped, but again, they were there, they took advantage of it when it came to them. So I don't remember seeing a lot of them, if I'm being completely honest, but what we did see of them, they were always nice and racy, and they seem to have some again, like Alfa, better pace than I think we were expecting. Certainly I was expecting.
Well, personally, I've got to say, I think Alpine have stayed exactly where they were last year. They haven't gone forward. They haven't.
I'm so pleased to hear that.
They're just like, yeah, this is all right. We pick up points every now and then. We can sniff a podium if there's a load of chaos. We'll stay here. Why move? Like having a nice house in a bad place. And
yeah.
Ocon, yeah, it might have been a bit harsh to give a penalty for that because it was lap 1 racing incident. He did gain the place past Mick from that. So whether the memorandum that went around before has come into play with it, I don't know if you read that about gaining an advantage.
I didn't know. I didn't spot that.
It was I think it was a statement from Vittich saying that race control will not be telling teams and drivers to give places back at all. It's up to the teams and drivers to determine whether they have gained an advantage illegally and decide for themselves whether to give it back, and they have to do it within a lap or they get a penalty, which I think is brilliant because now it's like an honesty box for Formula One. So I don't know if that possibly came into it. It would fit, but then it might seem like a slightly weak penalty for spinning someone around. Who knows?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, I like the idea, let them race and let them make those decisions. The only time that, and I agree, I think that's a great idea until you think about, he's, I'll say, because he's top of the timesheets, Leclerc spins round Ocon and then goes off and builds up a 30-second lead and then gets 5-second penalty. It's not really, or goes off track to gain a position over Ocon and then builds a 30-second gap. Suddenly, what's 5 seconds? It's not helped Ocon out. But I tend to agree. It's a very good idea. Just let them get on with it and let them. We've got some intelligent people in these teams. Let them make these decisions. I'm sure they'll all agree. What's right.
Well, I think that's the main point of trying to do this. That's why they specifically stated they've got to give it back within a lap, and then if they don't, it will be pushed through pretty rapid that they're getting the penalty almost straight away. Whether that, so it can, in most cases, go on the pit stop or use something else if they haven't got a pit stop to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get that. I just mean that if you do that on lap 1, and then your stop isn't until lap 20, well, that Ferrari is going to be well up the road.
True.
If you know what I mean. I'm not saying that the Ferrari
Although they are
regularly racing Ocon, but
although the likes of Vittich and Freitas are a lot smarter, and they will probably have something in place to account for that.
Yeah. And anything to say on Alpine now? I mean, we've talked a bit about Ocon there. Maybe Alonso. I'm being honest. I'm not going to sit here and lie. I don't have much in my notes apart from what laps they stopped, which isn't really all that interesting. If I'm being honest, they pitted and put some new tyres on a couple of times.
Yeah, from what I saw, I think Fernando just really struggled. He had a bit of a poor race, to be honest, which was a bit of a surprise. And obviously, I think him and Ocon are going to be close all year. There's no doubt about that. But I think he had some tyre issues. Really, kind of. I remember he pitted. He was definitely one of the first to pit during the first round of pit stops, and I think it happened then again during the second round. So yeah, something for him to look back. Maybe it's an Alpine issue. I don't know. But on the Ocon penalty, to be honest, actually, I think I was really surprised in terms of I actually did think it was a penalty, and I was surprised that they gave it because. To me, even though it was on lap 1, and I do get the point that people say, it was a racing incident, but if you take someone out, I mean, he wasn't even side by side with Mick, and he kind of stuck his nose in when there was no real gap. So, and he did spin him out and then did gain an advantage. So, to me, even though it was first lap, I was actually surprised, but also pleased that he did get the 5-second penalty because at the end of the day, he got it out of the way and he still he still had an amazing race, got it up to P7, which is obviously incredible. So, yeah, it's strangely a good start for the stewards. I was quite happy with that, but yeah, I didn't actually know about what Jonty said in terms of putting that almost moral choice into the hands of the team. So that's definitely going to be an interesting one, and I actually quite like that in terms of yes, there will be extreme examples where some cars obviously. Like you said with, Leclerc, if he spun Ocon and then built up a 30-second lead, then it's a little bit meaningless to give him a penalty. But if it is in the midfield and you have gained an advantage, put that moral choice in the hands of the teams within one lap to give that place back. And if they don't, then you give them a penalty because they decided not to not to give the place back. So that's really interesting to hear. But yeah, on Alpine, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because again, we talk about that really close midfield. Where are they really? We don't really know, but Yeah, it is kind of strange that they're exactly where they were at the end of last season through all of this madness, but I think they're going to want to expect a little bit more. There's always that question with Alpine of when are they going to turn it up, because they are a manufacturer team. They've got two great drivers. I mean, Esteban Ocon, he's kind of forgotten his woes of coming back in 2020 up against Ricardo. He was back to his best last year. Great to see him get that win, and he seems to just carry it over into 2022, which is amazing. And I'm sure he's going to be looking to beat Fernando Alonso to really kind of take that team over for himself. And knowing Fernando Alonso, he's going to look to do the exact opposite. So they've got a really good driver dynamic there with both of each other pushing themselves. But yeah, with Alpine, I did expect a little bit more, to be honest, for them this season. But I suppose it's kind of a good base to be kind of where they left off last year, and hopefully with plenty of room to grow.
Yeah, because they weren't in a bad place last year, were they at all? They were a good side. A good side. It's not football. A good team. A good team in that top of the midfield. So I think my biggest takeaway from Alpine this weekend is that they are, you know, if they are where they were last year, that's better than I thought they were going to be. Again, after testing, again, from what we can read into testing, obviously. But if I'm honest, little bit disappointed with Fernando Alonso today. But again, I haven't seen press releases yet, so there could be a reason behind why he wasn't maybe didn't perform as much or as well as I was expecting him to. But frankly, I think you've kind of just touched on it there, Aldas. It's Fernando Alonso. He will get it together. He had a tricky start last year, didn't he? He will get it together. He will deliver you results, and he will perform, and he will absolutely do that this year. So I'm pretty sure they'll be okay. Alpha Tauri, Yuki Tsunoda, I'm actually quite chuffed for him, actually, to get those points on the board. But I think a pretty quiet race. I have got their press release through. He just is quite happy today, especially with the starters. I was able to make up a few places. I had a little bit of luck near the end, so as some cars had failures. He's not mentioning which cars, I wonder why. But overall, I'm pleased with how today went. We've still got a lot of work to do to be able to fight consistently at the top of the midfield, but we're confident that we can develop the car and continue to improve our performances. So obviously, then the usual line about going away, analysing data, coming back stronger, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I think a solid race from Yuki today. Kind of gutted for Pierre, though, if I'm honest, because I think he was looking good for some points as well, and that would have been a great start to the year for Alpha Tauri. Just looking at the press release quickly, see if he said anything. Started to smell burning, which is obviously never going to be a good sign. Such a shame, as I had a really good start, was able to pass Fernando. Then Kevin, when I got the chance, we were running quite consistently in P8. We lost some important points today, but there's still lots of positives to take away from the weekend, and that's kind of how I feel about Alpha Tauri. They've looked good. They've looked good this weekend. They looked good in the race. I think Pierre was on for points. Yuki was on the fringes of points. I think actually as well, Tsunoda did a good job to keep Valtteri Bottas behind him as well when they were squabbling, which is kind of what Yuki seems to be able to do very well, is defend quite well. So I was quite happy to see him be able to do that. So I think the pace is there in the car, just very unlucky with whatever the issues were with the power unit or whatever that ended up being. But I think, do you think enough positives this weekend for Alpha Tauri to be happy, Jonty? Despite the fact it all kind of fell apart there for Pierre?
I think they can be happy with their pace. They possibly might have wanted a bit more. I think last year Gasly's qualifying performance may have skewed a little, but I think last year they were a bit closer to the front than the back than they are now. But overall, the pace is decent. You know, they're certainly not at the back, and they got very, very unlucky with Pierre. And Tsunoda seems to have just relaxed a little bit, focus on his own driving as opposed to trying to overdrive the car, which I think has been a really good change. You know, that affected him quite badly at the start of last year, and that's completely gone now. So definitely something to keep an eye on as we move forward. They are not going to be forgotten about. They're always going to be fighting for points.
It's a good dynamic at that team. I like Alpha Tauri. I do. I think they've kind of been they're still the Red Bull Junior team, aren't they? But they've kind of been let go a little bit, and there's a little bit less control there. Although I don't know, maybe that might have tightened up a bit this year with the rules change, so they can, you know, be clever and move some stuff around. I don't know. But yeah, no, I like the direction that team's heading in, and I think they will be in that midfield. They're not going to be title challengers. I wouldn't be surprised to see them on the podium this year. You know, Pierre Gasly is in my opinion anyway, one of the best in that midfield on his day and possibly overall. But it depends what the midfield is, I suppose, doesn't it? If that midfield contains potentially Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso and co, then maybe not. But you know what I mean. The midfield from last year. Let's get on to really so many positives in that run through. A few negatives, obviously, particularly for Red Bull. But now we're really going to get a bit negative here. Aston Martin. I mean, without swearing, what the fuck is that about?
I swear.
So much potential in that team, so much ambition in that team, so much talk around this year. They've built a car that looks beautiful, but is not really quick. I mean, Lance Stroll today, 12th place, based on what we've seen this weekend, I'd argue that's a pretty mega result for him, which is crazy to me. I thought Aston were going to be right in that midfield fight towards the sharp end and, Alpine up there and maybe battling with McLaren. We'll get to them in a minute. But yeah, Aston Martin, absolutely atrocious this weekend to the point where 12th place, Aldas, is a good result. I mean, what's that?
I mean, also, especially after qualifying as well, because, I mean, a little bit of positivity. I think Nico Hulkenberg did a fantastic job in one day to jump in, have some practice in a car you've never driven before. You haven't driven for 15 months. You've never driven this style of car before. So, yeah, he definitely did a great job in qualifying, beating Lance Stroll. I thought that was I said on Twitter, I thought that was a little bit embarrassing, to be honest. But yeah, certainly we know that Lance, his forte is in the race, although if Aston Martin do want to make, again, we saw with Kevin Magnussen, when you have two rookie drivers, you don't always know how good your car is, but when you get a quality driver in there, you know exactly how good it is. So with better performances, I think Stroll should be, hopefully might be getting the Aston Martin a little bit higher than where he's got it. But yeah, 12, it does feel like a really strangely good result, actually, when you look at some of the performance that they had. But it's a weird one. I don't really know how to gauge them. I think we have to wait until Seb comes back as well, and obviously hope that he comes back fully fit, because we know that even after COVID, I remember Lewis after Sakia, he didn't quite come back, and even he said at the beginning of 2021 that he still had a few little side effects. So hopefully Seb comes back at his absolute best. But yeah, disappointing. That car is as fast. Well, sorry, no, the car looks amazing, but it doesn't look the way it drives. So, or it doesn't drive the way it looks. That's the right way around. Sorry, it's a late night. But yeah, it's a bit of a strange one. Exactly. Yeah. I'm not quite sure what their problem is. I think it's just that the car doesn't have enough downforce compared to the other cars. I mean, when you look at like McLaren, which we're going to talk about, I think there's some reliability issues underlying their car performance. The Aston just looks like it to the back of the grid, which is a little bit unfortunate, actually. But yeah, hopefully they can find some performance, because it's a weird one. They're a team with so much potential, so much investment going in. With Lawrence Stroll around, there's also a lot of noise about, their marketing and how great they're going to be in 3, 4, 5 years, challenging for championships. And I feel like some of that noise now, this team has had a bit of a reality check, I think, over the past year and a half. And I think some of that noise kind of needs to die down. And they just need to focus on being a race team, almost go back to their roots of that plucky midfield team that was always didn't have the budget, but always over-delivered with two great drivers, kind of always kind of getting the best out of the car. So hopefully they can come back to that. But this midfield is so competitive. In a weird way, maybe it's a good thing, because it means maybe there's a little bit less pressure for them to beat a specific team. But yeah, it's a strange, I think it's a bit disappointing, and I'm honestly shocked.
Yeah, it's all right having, that ambition I talked about, the new developments at the factory, getting that all expanded and moving people around and getting what they think, we'll see in time, obviously, what they think are the right people in the right places. That's all great. But if you're driving around at the back of the grid, then what's the point? You might as well just not bother. That's a team that's always, as the Silverstone team, Jordan, Racing Point, Force India, they've always punched above their weight. So to see them struggling like that is really quite jarring for me, because I thought they were going to be solid. I didn't think they'd make the big leap, do a brawn or anything like that, but I thought they'd be top end of that midfield. Fighting. And obviously, it's only one race. We might get to Saudi Arabia and they might have understood something, or a couple of races down the line, they could be right up there. This is something that's going to chop and change. Maybe not every weekend, but certainly every few weekends. And we're not going to have a proper idea of the running order until, I think I said to Dan in the off-season, probably until Barcelona. But then he made the point that even then, teams might start turning up with almost like a B-spec car, which could shuffle it all again. So we're just not going to know. I think it's going to be summer break before we have a definitive idea, and then they're all going to come back with new cars for Belgium and throw us all off again. But I'm just really disappointed. I tend to agree, actually, Hulkenberg in that car, out qualifying Stroll, that is a bit embarrassing for Lance, because that's, with Seb out, get well soon, obviously Seb, but with Seb out for this weekend, that becomes his team. He leads that team, and he got not smashed by Nico Hulkenberg, but even being beaten by Nico Hulkenberg is bad enough. He's been in that car, in that team now for a couple of years. Is this his third year? Must be his third year.
2019, really?
Yeah.
Trying to think now. Yeah, did not 20 and 19, yeah, something like that. But it's been there long enough now, is the point, that he should be settled in. So for somebody to hop in that car after so long out and do that is bad, to be honest. But Lance Stroll also isn't a great qualifier, so it probably isn't too much of a surprise.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it is.
I can't hear you, Jonty. Hang on. Try again.
He's got the Red Bull power unit with him.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Was he coming through, Aldas?
Yeah, it's coming through fine.
My headphones.
You're just getting old and going deaf.
No, everything on my PC is breaking. My mouse is broken, so I'm having to mess about with that. My headphones keep breaking. It's been a good weekend. Sorry, Jonty. Off you go.
Yeah. Perhaps embarrassing might be a little bit harsh, but it's certainly in that direction. I mean, with regard to the car, I mean, there was a lot of stuff being said on the broadcast, and I've read a few things saying that it's back to that classic 2022 problem. Break out your dolphins. It's the porpoising. They haven't been able to get on top of it, and the only way they can make the car behave is to crank up the ride height. Which, there's one thing that ground effect downforce cars don't like. It's ride height. It's a high ride height. They need to be as close to the floor as possible. So, how do they fix that? I have got no idea. Because they can't just keep stiffening the suspension. Because if they do that, all will happen is the wishbones start breaking. So it's going to be a hard one to completely fix. Where do they go with that? How quickly can they do it? I worry that might put them at the very back for this season.
Really?
Yeah, genuinely. I genuinely think they could come up plumb last if they can't get this fixed quick.
Would you like to hear what the driver said? And bearing in mind, if you say no, I'm going to do it anyway, so I'm ignoring you. So it's happening. Lance Stroll said it's a shame we were not able to fight for points today, but we will benefit from completing our first race and understanding more. I suppose actually that's a point for teams like Aston and McLaren. If they struggle this weekend, at least they've got a nice long extra test session in, haven't they? Which I suppose is something. Initial impression is good. According to Lance, it will be an exciting season of racing because it appears that you can follow cars more closely. Woohoo! I had some great battles with Alex Albon and Mick Schumacher. It was challenging to keep temperatures cool and manage these new tyres, but we have some useful data, blah, 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 blah. And Nico Hulkenberg, who, yesterday, I think did a great job. Today, not the pace, but not a great surprise, given he's not been in the car since Nürburgring 2020, something like that. So it's been a long time. So
that's a different generation of cars as well.
Exactly,
It's like that's another thing.
And he'll have done he might have been in the simulator, but he'll have done no running in these cars at all, will he? So this is all brand spanking new to him. So he said it was interesting to be back in a Formula One car for a Grand Prix again, especially such a busy race with lots going on around me. Not easy to manage the tyres, which is what Lance says, so that could be it. And drive with a changing fuel load, so that's an interesting one. Car balance was also changing a lot, and it's not easy to prepare for this until you start racing, which is kind of what's saying there about lack of testing. We knew today was likely to be the most difficult day in the car for that reason, which proved to be the case. He feels he puts together a good race, all things considered. Did outbrake himself, actually, yes, that's on my notes, into turn one at one point, which cost him a little bit, but said it was a more challenging race after that one. So, I mean, I'm not going to read what Mike Crack says.
Just want to point out a couple of people have cited Canvas and Blackhawk in chat. I couldn't remember the actual value. Brundle was saying he's been told by Aston that they're losing as much as 3/4 of a second because of the ride height they've got to run.
Wow.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah. Now do that over 57 laps.
Yeah.
There's what, 35 seconds straight off the bat.
That's a lot. That is a lot. I mean, Hulkenberg, seen him in the car. I suspect it won't be the last time we see Nico Hulkenberg this season, not necessarily in an Aston. We're not going to get too much into it, but I think with restrictions being relaxed in the paddock, I think there's a good chance, or not good, that's good, that's terrible, but a chance that more drivers are going to come down with things, and we're going to see Hulkenberg super sub in some of these other cars. But then again, what's the point of having reserve drivers if you use somebody else's? But I don't know. We might see him again, but I'm really happy to see him in the car. Not obviously to see Seb ill, but really happy to see Hulkenberg in the car. And I think, all things considered, he's right that it was all right for him this weekend. I think he did okay. Leave him in that car for the season alongside Sebastian Vettel, and yeah, nothing against Lance Stroll, just I wouldn't drop Sebastian Vettel, is the point I'm making. Alex Albon, 13th, I said in the rundown, I think he did solidly this weekend, got himself into Q2 as well, performed much better than Nicholas Latifi, who's been at that team now for a couple of years. I think Alex Albon could be very, very happy. Latifi, not great. Not surprised either, to be honest. Lovely guy. I think he's better than people give him credit for, but I don't think he's going to be. I think he's going to struggle against Albon this year, if I'm being honest. But I think Williams overall, I think they're one of my biggest disappointments, Aldas, if I'm being honest, because I didn't expect any team to really do a brawn, although some might argue Haas haven't been a million miles away from that, given how far they were off the pace last year. But I thought Williams were going to be more competitive than they actually have been this weekend. And I know that it is very early days, and I know that 5 races down the line, it could be a very different story. 10 races, it could be a different story again. But at the moment, they're a bit further back than I thought they'd be. And maybe that's just me, which is kind of why I'm coming to you, Aldas, because I've not really spoken to you about sort of since testing and what's been going on. But I thought Williams were looking solid and consistent until, obviously, the issues with Latifi's car late on in testing. And I thought they were going to be strong in that midfield, consistent in the midfield, and they're sort of towards the tail end of it at the moment.
Yeah, it's same from my side. I've been obviously a little bit disappointed with Williams, but the one thing I will say is that we talked about Aston Martin, like they're massively compromised by the porpoising. There's potentially, I mean, again, up to 7 tenths, maybe in that car, so there is performance there. McLaren, we're going to talk about them in just a second. There's underlying reliability issues in terms of why they can't get that performance out of that car. The Williams just looks slow. Like there's no actual, I don't know, maybe they do have a massive amount of porpoising and that's their issue, but it just looks like the downforce just isn't there. It does look like sadly they are at the back of the grid. But apart from that, the one thing that I've been really impressed with Alex Albon. Really, really impressed. From the first week of testing, the one thing that I've been saying actually about Alex is that with him replacing George, he's not come in to support Nicholas Latifi. He's not come in there to be a good, solid driver for Williams. He's come in there to be the number one. He's come in there to make the difference, the big star signing, the guy that had to fill George Russell's shoes. And from the very first week of testing, he was quicker than Latifi in every single session. He's looked quicker than Latifi in Bahrain testing as well. And all weekend long, I mean, he's just been fantastic. To think that, again, another quality driver who hasn't been in Formula One for over a year, and he gets in the car and he just does the business. He just literally he picks up exactly where kind of George Russell left off, which is amazing to see. Again, I think it still calls to question the longevity of Nicholas Latifi at that team. I mean, if you really want to move up the grid and you really want to get the best out of that car, you saw what Alex Albon in just his first race weekend was able to do alone. Is Latifi, again, I think it was a bit of an embarrassing qualifying from him to be that outclassed by Albon. So, and again, this is just his first race, him coming back to Formula One. So there's a lot of things that I think Williams are going to be disappointed about their car for sure. I did expect a little bit more. I didn't expect them to do a crazy jump up the field, exactly like you said, Sean. But the one positive I think is that when the car will show performance, I think Albon has proved that he's come back with a really good mojo. He has that experience of being a top driver and everything that comes along with that. He spent a lot of time with Red Bull and their kind of simulator. And some of the Williams team actually apparently were very impressed with his feedback in testing as well. Like he really did give them a good impression. And he's going to be, I think, a really big positive for the team. And it's great to see him back because he's another driver that I think deserves to be in Formula One. But yeah, Latifi on the other hand and Williams in general, I think there's a few questions around them.
I said to Tomo a couple of weeks ago, what Albon has also got this year is a point to prove. And I think, with everything you've just said there and that kind of behind him, that I suppose as flexible as he had to be to do it, his own foot up his backside is what I'm kind of getting at. The pressure of putting himself to prove that point is going to drive him along very nicely. And I did see something in chat actually a minute ago, ask a question. If I can't find it, you'll know who you are when I say it. Essentially saying, did he beat Latifi? There you go. The Max says, did Albon beat Latifi sufficiently to justify his return to F1? Given we had a late safety car, Albon was 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds clear. I think so. I think the fact he beat him in terms of positions comprehensively in qualifying, I can't remember what the gap was, but, it might not have been huge, but he beat him in qualifying, got into Q2. I think he did a great job and proved that he was right. Some might argue there were others that would have been better. There'll be many, I'm sure, who go, what about Hulkenberg? Because everyone loves the Hulk. So there you go. It's just all I ever hear whenever there's a seat open. What about Hulkenberg? So maybe you might argue there was some better people to fill that. I think it was a good choice. I think he's gone in there and shown that he was the right choice. Again, though, 22 races to go. If he does nothing else all season, and that opinion will change. And by the way, it's fine to change your opinion. There you go. Anything you want to add on Williams, Jonty?
No, all fair points. As someone mentioned in the chat about trying to judge the bottom 3 teams, as well as the rest of the grid, of course, is that right now we've got that issue where our sample size is 1.
Yeah.
All it takes for Aston, McLaren, Williams is to just get that setup wrong once. And then they're going to be stuffed for the whole weekend. Will it going to be any different next week? It remains to be seen. It's a similar-ish. No, not even vaguely similar. Oh, I don't know.
You're right, Jonty.
I think Williams has got more pace in that car. They just, because they've got 2 of not the best drivers. Again, taking time to get the most out of it. So it should be It should be better next week. I hope it'll be better next week because I don't like seeing Williams at the back.
And also, by the way, just to chime in a little bit, you talked about judging the bottom 3 teams based off a sample set of 1. The team at the bottom of the Constructors' Championship at the moment is Red Bull Racing. That was a joke, chat, by the way.
Yeah, I saw that.
So there you go. Throw a matchstick in there.
Yeah, just because thanks to the old countback with both of them not finishing.
Didn't Dan predict that by accident the Red Bull won't get any podiums in Stewart's prediction thing?
I watched that. He did, didn't he?
Yes, I've already sent a message to the group chat about that one.
Well, maybe he was right.
We know what Dan's been doing over the winter, don't we?
Tampering with engines, Red Bull powertrains. Oh, Dan, if you're listening, mate, that's a disgrace. Absolute disgrace. One more team to go.
Oh boy.
Didn't think I'd be saying this, if I'm being honest. Last team today, McLaren.
Yeah.
I mean, look, testing wasn't great. We know that. Well, particularly the second test. They've got their brake problems. They've got an interim solution. They've, that's it for this weekend. I don't know if it'll be on the car next weekend or whether they will be able to get something through. But that was, I think, out of all of the teams on the grid, that was the worst for me. McLaren were the worst because sort of based on my expectations. So I thought they were going to be up there, top 4, maybe knocking on the doors of the podiums, maybe early doors. Word, Sean. They could be, challenging Ferrari, maybe challenging Red Bull in the fight with Mercedes. So based on the expectations I have for them, this is by far and away the worst team for me this weekend. They have been so bad because, well, I don't know why. I was going to try and come up with a reason, just because they've been crap. The pace hasn't been there. The car, the drivers don't seem totally happy. And I'm kind of blown away by it all because I thought they would be right up there. And I thought they had a car that everyone, all these experts, and I'm not an expert, I never pretend to be, but all these experts saying, they're still top 4, they're looking good, pace is solid and all this business. And the pace wasn't there this weekend. So I guess the question, we could focus on Ricciardo and Norris's races if you want. So Ricciardo last by lap 1 because he had to avoid some incidents ahead. So Lando going straight on decided to take early evasive action, and that didn't help him out. But that was it. Pit stops, I think, all went smoothly according to my list. Not seeing anything in here about them. They were atrocious. So I guess the question is, Jonty, what what the hell was that? I guess is what I'm going to go with.
Well, do we even have any clue as to where the issue really lies?
It can't be the brakes. That's the only thing we keep hearing about is these brakes, but that can't be the brakes that take, this interim solution. Maybe it's slightly heavier, but surely that's not going to be the reason.
Yeah, I mean, they can't be causing that much difference. Interim solution or not, I mean, I refuse to believe that they can be that far back just on one thing. There's got to be something else, whether it's cooling, because that's not just of brakes, but of power unit, because that's been pretty much an issue for everyone. I actually saw a couple of instances where various drivers were pulling out of slipstreams just to get that extra cooling. So I'd really love to know. It's just such a baffling one.
Prajumna in chat just making a point now as well. Sorry, Jonty, that there was the issue with understeer for Ricciardo. He was understeering badly as well. So that's possibly that's part of it as well. But then where's that understeering coming from? What's going on? And actually in chat as well, who just said that? Considering they were first to solve porpoising, yeah.
Well, I mean, I'd attempt to think vaguely logically, if they're running a temporary, interim solution for the brake cooling at the front, if they haven't got it completely perfect, exactly how they want, then that could be disrupting a fair amount of airflow around the front half of the car, affecting understeer. But that's just a wild speculation.
What about you, Aldas? I've just pulled you back in. I don't know if you'd left deliberately, so if you don't want to be here, just tell me to get lost.
No, actually, well, now that you mentioned it, no, just disconnected. My McLaren brakes just kicked in for some reason, but
powered by
used to
Chrome.
work.
Exactly, yeah, powered by Chrome. I still think I'm one of those blind kind of hopefuls that I don't think that car is as bad as it looks at the moment. I think it's a decent car. I'm not going to go any more than that. I think there is some kind of underlying problem. Also, someone in the chat mentioned, and I was going to say it as well, this is one of the worst tracks to have that kind of problem on. I mean, Bahrain, heavy braking zone into turn 1. Then the next straight, another heavy braking zone. There's 2 more back straights after that. If it happens somewhere like, I don't know, Hungary or Monaco, that's a different story. But to have a brake issue, I think that there is underlying performance in that car. I don't think that you can go from being amazing in week 1 and looking decent in terms of the balance and certainly some of the drivers being quite happy with it to then completely off the pace. I do think that there is performance to find in that car. Although the really interesting thing is that, I think Sean mentioned it, we don't actually know what the specific brake issue is because McLaren themselves have been very, very coy on what it actually is specifically. So does that mean that that they can solve it in the short term? Is this going to be a long-term fix? We don't know, but there's no way they're at the back of the grid. There's just no way. I think they've got a massive issue with their car that was basically preventing them from running anywhere near their optimum, but I do expect them to come back. I think they're going to struggle now, to be honest, to finish 4th unless they really solve it quick enough and there is enough performance because there's so many competitive teams in that midfield, but very disappointing from McLaren. They're still on a really good trajectory. This is just a big bump in the road. And I think the question is, how quickly is it going to take to solve it? And also, it's difficult to judge where the drivers are. I think Ricciardo definitely was off it as he's kind of been for the past year, but it wasn't as if Norris was any closer. He was a little bit ahead of Ricciardo, and then I think got a little bit unlucky with the safety car at the end. But yeah, it's difficult to judge their drivers. It's difficult to judge where their car is because we don't know what the specific problem is. But hopefully it does get sorted. And again, maybe it's just a bit of blind hope for me. I don't think that car is at the back. I don't think that car is the second worst on the grid. I think they've just got a serious issue.
Yeah, a couple of points in chat been made. Marie says, yeah, Norris had an issue with the front right, I believe, in one of the pit stops. I missed that, so that would explain some of his time loss if he lost time in the pits there. So I missed that, so apologies. The other one though is from Mickey6J, who says brakes is where the most time is gained or lost, really. So if it is the brakes that are the problem, then, and we know that Ricardo or Norris? One of them was sort of closing the DRS earlier than they needed to. So maybe there's some balance issues there when it gets to the braking zone. If it is a braking issue, then they're losing a lot of time there. So I suppose a little bit like Merc, there is inherently a good car there. They just need to get on top of their issues. And just to anybody who's coming in late who's just heard me say that, yes, I know Lewis Hamilton was on the podium. Yes, I know George Russell was fourth. However, based on the high standards Mercedes have set, they're still a long way off on pace, but they were happy. They'll be happy with third and fourth today based on where they were. Leave it at that. But I just don't know what to say about McLaren. But they're a good team. They've got two good drivers. They will come back from this. I agree. I don't think they're down the back. I don't think they are going to be there all season. It might be a few races because Saudi Arabia next week? What can Mercedes, McLaren, and those teams like Aston struggling really do in a week? Because it's pretty much just on a plane and off you go now to the next one. So maybe the gap to Australia, maybe a little bit later. First European race of the season, Imola. Maybe Miami. I don't know. It's going to be, but I'm confident McLaren will turn it around. But I'm really, really surprised about where they were. I don't know if you wanted to come in there, Jonty, and add something.
Well, apart from laughing at all the Chrome jokes in the chat.
Yeah.
I know we've sat here for the last couple of hours giving fairly detailed, nuanced opinions on each and every team and all the drivers and what's gone on through the race and where we think they are. Again, we still need to take it all with a little pinch of salt because the regulation change is so drastic. I don't think you can read, 2017 was a bit different. It wasn't the massive major change, just the wings changed a bit.
Stupid change.
And that was it. Yeah, it was very stupid. But, the last really big one was 2014 with the power units and the aero. Same in 2009. And on both occasions, we saw massive shifts of who was where. It really shuffled things around. But it didn't happen immediately. Brawn were instantly out front, but that was a massive shift in itself. The same with Mercedes in 2014. So, but the other teams came back at them later. McLaren got good. Red Bull got good at the end of 2009. 2014, Ferrari came back. This isn't the final order.
No. Oh God, no.
And it is going to change a lot.
We come back every week. We love having you here for a chat and everyone watching, but come back in a few weeks' time and we'll be sat. We might, and I'm exaggerating massively here, but we might be sat here saying, what's happened to Ferrari and how have Alpine suddenly become the top team? And I'm exaggerating,
exactly.
But you know the point. And this could shuffle so easily if a team that's struggling with porpoising and that's their issue, get on top of it. Where could Alpine be as an example? McLaren get their brake problems sorted, get to understand the car. Where could they be? This is going to chop and change all season, and that excites me because I don't want a predictable Formula One. It is great as an F1 fan seeing the two red bars at the top of the timing screens to see those Ferraris up there. But I don't want to see that every weekend. I want to see the Mercedes teal up there, the Red Bull blue. I want to see Magnus on top of them timesheets. He will do. I want to see Bottas nice and high up, and I want to see this variety. And that's kind of what these new rules are supposed to do. And I'm actually quite relieved, just kind of to summarise my point there, that first of all, what we're saying in testing, none of these cars look the same, which is brilliant. But also, I think we had the conversation a lot over the winter, Jonty, that there's always a risk with rules resets that one team nails it and just disappears with the championship. Like, I know it was a power unit thing, but like Mercedes in 2014, then they dominate for several years. I don't think we've got that here. And it seems to have just worked quite nicely, which is brilliant. Again, it could all change, but I'm very excited. Very excited for this season. I am going to come to... I'll heads up, Aldas and Jonty. I'm going to ask you driver of the day in a moment. Just give you some warning, but I'll just do these super chats that I've missed. Love that name. Says, are Mercedes power cars in trouble this season? We'll try and come back. We've kind of touched on that. I think the feeling is that something's not right. It's kind of where we're at, but I have a lot of faith Obviously, power. They can't do anything about power, can they? Because they're frozen, but they can work on any reliability issues. But I think I can't see how Mercedes have suddenly got the worst engine out there, would be my answer to that one. Thank you to AC again. Says Aston needs to drop Stroll and get better drivers after Seb retires to progress further. Thank you very much. And same again from says thoughts on Alfa Romeo's pretty decent form. Pretty decent from them. Yeah, we've been through Alfa as well, but I would just, because you're late, we are impressed. Very impressed by Bottas this weekend. Very happy to see Joe up there. And very, very pleased to see that Alfa are not in a horrible position, which is where everyone felt they were after testing. Right then. Chat, one surname. I'll read a few out. I won't get through them all, but I'll read a few out. Who was your driver of the day? We'll go alphabetically. Why not? Aldas, who was your driver of the day today?
To me, it's actually a pretty easy one. Stoffel No, it's not that.
Hell yeah.
Crazy. I'm going to go with the winner, Charles Leclerc. I thought pole position, perfect start. He was ahead. He was still first at the end of the lap one. He survived and conquered all of the pressure from Max Verstappen. That's not easy to do. That's no joke. He also survived the safety car. That can be a bit of a scare when you're leading, and he hasn't been leading and contending for consistent race wins for a very long time now, for a couple of years. But he just absolutely aced it. I know it's kind of strange. There's a lot of great shouts I'm sure you guys are going to talk about, but he really did. Oh, I also think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he also grabbed the fastest lap as well.
He did, yeah, maximum points.
Maximum points, basically led all of the important parts of the race, including the final lap, of course. And I mean, yeah, perfection, really. And just great to see him back up there, because we always knew that he had the speed. And now hopefully he also has the car for the rest of the season to really kind of give us the title challenge that we know he can.
What about you, Jonty? Who are you going for? You can pick the same if you want to.
Do you need to ask?
Oh, I know, Grosjean, but he's not here. You can't pick him.
No, because his engine went pop, and that made me sad. No, K-Mag, absolutely. You just cannot knock that performance at all, the whole weekend, and the story behind it. Fantastic.
I think both very good answers. My pick would have been Leclerc for the way he battled Verstappen, the way he soaked up that pressure, the way he drove, generally speaking. But because you picked him out, and because then Jonty went with Magnussen, I'll say Bottas. I'll throw him in there. I think possibly even one of the drivers of the weekend. I think great performance from Valtteri today. I still think it's quite funny. I saw a meme on Twitter of somebody, I don't know what show it's from, but it was, it made me laugh. But essentially, Lewis Hamilton turning around to find Valtteri Bottas is still right behind him. Like, what the f- are you doing there? How is this possible? So I think Bottas would be my other pick if I'm not picking Leclerc or Magnussen. But I think a lot of people say K-Mag, and I can understand it. But I think Leclerc was superb today, and so was Bottas. So, that's that. I've got nothing else to add. I don't know why I tried to add more to it. That's that. Del says Charles. Marie says Leclerc. KMS Boss says K-Mag. Sam says Magnussen. Erin says K-Mag. Jaws. DJ McPingu say Magnussen. Professional moron who has the best name. Gaston Mazzacane. That's a blast from the past. That is. God, he was awful. He was awful. Mattia Bonotto says Leclerc. There you go. Crazy Ninja, Ward Swerts both say Leclerc. Yelbana says Magnussen. K-Mag, easy pick for Ace. Joe from Paint. I think that's fair. I don't think driver of the day, but I think he deserves a shout, definitely. Each their own, of course. Michael, Jack, Nathan, all say K-Mag. Jonathan says, Jonathan's got his badge as well. I remember to do membership badges. I've been saying it for 3 years. How exciting is that? Says Leclerc. Vasek says Leclerc or Magnussen. K-Mag for Kilwell. Let's scroll down a bit further. Red Bull South Petronas says Kvyat. Krishna says Leclerc. Admiral agrees that Stoffel is the greatest. Thank you very much. Malcolm says Leclerc. Anders says K-Mag and Bottas. Alex is talking to somebody else. I don't know. I was going to read yours out. Why not? He just says, okay, I got it, if you're interested. There you go. Hero Games says Sonoda. Nutella says Albon. Mickey's gone with Leclerc. David says Joe, points first time out. Squidgy Pixel, name, says K-Mag. I love some of the names in chat. I'm just scrolling down a bit further. K-Mag. Yeah, Leclerc, K-Mag.
I mean, if you like people's usernames, one of my friends on Twitch, who streams on Twitch, one of his viewers is called AFK. The wife is yelling. The best
Perfect.
name ever.
That's brilliant.
Let's do 3 more very, very quickly. 3 more that are just coming in. Let's say I'm looking for somebody like realistic, but not someone we've read already. So hard. The Max says Bottas. I know I've said him, but there you go. It's okay. Max Leclerc. Max says Hamilton. I think he's got to be happy with that 3rd place. I keep saying it, but he's got to be. And Rigo says Fernando Alonso. So there you go. Her says Ocon is a good fair point, apart from his penalty, obviously.
And Travis Curry, it was a Grand Slam. It wasn't a Grand Slam. There's a difference. Because didn't Sainz or Verstappen take over the lead during the pit stops?
Yeah, I think
Yes.
Perez as well. So the Grand Slam is like literally fastest everything, lead every single lap, quickest lap. So yeah, he wasn't able to do that, but Grand Slam is still okay.
Yeah. I think that's the only thing I don't like about how the pit stop situation works out now. It's virtually impossible to get a Grand Slam unless, a safety car comes out exactly when the pit stop would be happening anyway. That's the only downside to it.
Yeah, but then it makes it all the more special when somebody does it, doesn't it? I suppose.
Yeah, that's true.
No, I get it though. But yeah, like Alda said, I think he'll take a Grand Slam. I think he'll be fairly content with that one after this weekend.
Yeah.
Could you imagine in the Ferrari debrief? Oh, the race went brilliant, 1-2, but I didn't lead every single lap.
So I'm retiring. I quit.
Yeah, and it's not like the 50s and 60s where they used to get it because after 5 laps they were 4 minutes in the lead.
With about 3 cars running.
As many as 3. Christ. If you've got any questions, please do pop them in chat. We'll take, 10 or 15 minutes, do a few questions. If you're new to the channel, by the way, by questions, you'll ask a question, we'll answer it, and then we'll wander off on a completely different tangent and we'll never get to anybody else. But we'll try and answer a few. Please do. In the meantime, don't forget to drop a like. Always appreciated. 923. So if we can get that to 1,000, that would be amazing. So please do try and do that one. Thank you for your super chats as well. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. I'm not going to push memberships because literally all you get is a badge. But if you want to support the channel with a membership, you can do. And I got Lewis to do the badges this week, which is nice. It's a different coloured F1 word helmet for every membership month or whatever it is. Yeah. And it's a crash helmet before you try and say something disgusting, Jonty. I know what you're like. I can hear it. I can hear it. Maybe not.
Don't know what you mean.
Popo and AD, how about Saudi and predictions for Saudi? Obviously still very difficult to predict at this stage, Jonty. Do you think, given the little time we have between now and then, that running order is probably going to be roughly what we get next week? I know it's hard to answer that. It's really tough.
Again, it's really hard to say because Bahrain's got a fairly even mix. Of high speed, medium speed, and there's a couple of slow corners, but not too many. Jeddah's pretty much high speed all the way with a couple of sharp stops. So it really could be completely different. I'm pretty sure Ferrari and Red Bull will still be fighting up the front. But if this is a major PU or fuel pump issue, I would assume that a full throttle track like Jeddah could be even more of an issue. I'm not trying to put the dampener on Red Bull's possibilities, you know what I mean? It's just, well, you know what my brain's like. Someone says one thing and I instantly come up with 12 possibilities.
Which is why we love you. It's why we love these conversations. It's where tinfoil hats came from. You, I believe.
Although I have seen, engine mode on Twitter, former Red Bull employee has stated if it is a fuel pump failure of some description, then wait for the fireworks because it is a standard
spec part.
FIA supplied part manufactured by Magneti Marelli. So, yeah.
And if anyone's going to kick off...
Oh, boy.
Yeah. I'd forgotten about
That's
that.
just what F1 Twitter needed.
Oh, no. Logs off. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that'll be... Yeah, I mean, Jeddah's a tough one anyway, and somebody already asked about the changes. KMS Boss 2010 saying any news on the changes to Jeddah circuit. Black Hawk did give me a whole list of them, and I screenshot it during the testing streams, and then forgot to paste that or save that somewhere rather, and I don't know where it is. So there are some changes coming to the Jeddah circuit, but I think the long story short is I think a couple of the corners are getting a little bit widened up a little bit, and some are getting sort of that really. I'm going to use a phrase now. If you're eating, I'm so sorry. That sphincter clenching final sector where it's just blind corner after blind corner. I think they're trying to straighten, sort of move the barriers back a bit to make that a bit less dangerous, a bit less nerve-wracking for people. A bit better sight lines for the drivers, basically. So I'm not sure, but obviously preview on Thursday. I'll be able to go through all of that in there because there have been changes. But I mean, it needed it after last year. I think many of us will agree on that. But I hope I hope we have a good race in Jeddah, and we get a better idea for what it's going to be like as a racetrack, because last year the focus was on naturally 2 drivers, and it was a chaotic race, and we didn't really get to see what that track's capable of, if that makes sense, Aldas. I think it was a little bit, sorry Jonty, you can answer as well, but I think it'd be nice to just see a bit more. Go on then, list them.
Yeah, visibility to be increased through high speed sections where it was most narrow between turns 2 and 3, turns 14 and 21. All four corners get the barriers widened. Apex barriers being changed to Armco style that you get at Monaco, because cars can brush against them easier without damage. New start time, earlier than last year apparently, by half an hour. Don't know why. I quote the Racing News 365 article saying, track widened on a corner that robbed Verstappen. That is not my opinion. That is a direct quote.
Ooh, let me guess who wrote that.
No one else hit it. And finally, probably the most important one, artists drafted in to give the track a fresh look, because that makes all the difference. Saudi Motorsport Company have drafted in the Saudi Banksy Rex Chuk to decorate the tarmac runoff areas.
Brilliant.
If one of them isn't Alonso on a deck chair, we riot.
And of course, that's the most important point, isn't it? Is forget the track changes, they're going to paint the runoff. As long as they don't do the lines like Paul Ricard. Oh, that's a migraine.
No. Yeah.
I forgot what I was going to ask you, Aldas. Yeah, thoughts on Jeddah? I suppose is where we're going.
Do you know what? It's a weird one, because I actually quite like the track. I do think that there's a weird element to it where I do think it's kind of like almost been designed to induce like carnage and crashes, which I don't really like to see, because the track is high speed, and that's the worrying thing. Like even somewhere where Singapore, very similar, I suppose, in the way kind of the barriers are really close, but Singapore is nowhere near as high speed. Also, by the way, looking forward to coming back to Singapore, so that's going to be quite nice. But I think for me, the biggest thing, the track seemed to be actually quite nice, but just the visibility was terrible. You couldn't see. You're going at 180 miles an hour pretty much for most of that lap, and you can't see what's, a few meters ahead of you because the barriers are so high. And that was kind of the big worrying thing for me. But yeah, glad to hear most of those changes. Glad to hear that the tarmac's getting repainted or whatever. But in terms of actually any predictions, I feel like, reliability aside, I really do think that Red Bull are going to come back, because I think Max had a lot of pace there. Their power unit, I don't know if it was the DRS or whatever, but Max's closing speed to Leclerc was just ridiculous at points. Like, I don't know if their power unit really is that good. Again, reliability and fuel pumps aside, but I do expect Red Bull to come back. I expect the Max Verstappen corner to not cause him as much problems, or I forget how the how 365 phrased it, but yeah, Max is angry, and when he's angry, he comes back fighting. So I'm looking forward to that.
I've just had a thought though, and it's not really F1 related, but it's just something Jonty said. You say the Saudi Banksy. How do you know the Saudi Banksy isn't just Banksy?
Well, this is true. How do you know it's not me? Or you?
Ooh.
Or Aldas?
It could be me. I mean, I can draw a mean stick, man.
It's not Sean.
It's not me. It's really not me. You see my graphic design at times. It's definitely not me. But it could be Neil Buchanan's might bet on Banksy, by the way. And all right, he's denied it. But of course he's denied it. He's not going to say, yes, I am. That was it.
I
That was
would love
literally
that.
it.
I would love it so much, Drew, if it really love it so much if it really was Neil Buchanan. I understand that most of the chat have no idea who Neil Buchanan is.
This is an arse attack and all that business.
Chat, I'm with you, by the way. I don't know either.
You don't know.
Oh, you've all missed out. It was the best program.
Pat Sharp.
What?
Wow.
Come on,
I'm
Pat Sharp's
uncultured,
even
chat.
getting early in your years, Sean.
I grew up with Funhouse, best show on TV. And we're not getting back into Robot Wars again. We did enough of that in testing. Yeah. Damn. I got people's hopes up then. Jaws says Funhouse. Thank you, Jaws. Oh, thank God. It's great having you on, Aldas. It's the same with Dan. It's great having you both on, but man, do you make me feel old.
Yeah,
I'm
but
not even
you know
old.
I
what?
see Art Attack. To be fair, I see Art Attack in the chat. That was a great one.
Well, that's what we're on about.
Oh, is that what you're on about? Is
Neil
that the guy's
Buchanan,
name?
yeah.
Oh, I don't remember his name, but I knew the show. So there you go. I kind of saved it.
Yeah, well, you see, you didn't have Aldas on during testing because someone was at testing. Yeah. Still bitter.
Glad someone said it.
So you didn't ask him who the best robot is? Assuming he watched Robot Wars.
I'm going to guess Aldas didn't watch Robot Wars.
Oh, it was many, many moons ago.
Yeah, to be fair, he might be too young for
He
the
also
original.
possibly had a life.
We're Formula One fans. We don't do that.
Yeah, what's a life? You look outside, it's a lovely sunny
Wow.
day, and you're like, farewell, life. See you in December when it's raining again.
I think just saying we're F1 fans, we don't do that. That must be the first time we've mentioned F1 in the last 5 minutes.
It must be, yeah. Let's get back onto it. We're down to 3 viewers. No.
Oh, Formula One.
I just saw a great question from Black Hawk. I think this is a topical one from the weekend. Should the designers of the new on-screen graphics be fired and publicly shamed for that new design package? I mean,
Yes.
it's not clear, is it? It's not clear. I missed the lines. The logos don't I don't like the numbers in the style. They don't work. It's not very clear for people, particularly on mobile devices. Apparently, people watch F1 races on mobile. There you go. I'm like Stuart. He said it on Twitter. I legit didn't know so many people did, but that's an issue. And I think they take up way too much of the screen. I think all they seem to do. Are they bigger? They feel bigger when you look at them.
I saw some people saying they were a bit further in from the edges. You know, that added more of a margin, which is effectively the same thing with how much of the actual action it covers up. They were much better before. Public shaming and sacking might be a bit much, but just go back to what they were. That'll do.
They were fine, weren't they? I like the additions, the picture-in-picture they'd done with those were good.
Yeah, I mean, there's good things they're trying to do. It's just they've done all of it. You know, if you just want to bring in one or two new things, bring those new things in. Don't change everything. Like the new sector times that we're watching through in qualifying,
yeah.
Absolutely horrific. So you got this huge time, and then impossibly tiny S1, S2, S3 and when they change to purple or green, you can't see it.
And the sector times don't update, do they? So, like, Gasly will do a purple first sector, then Verstappen will do one behind him, but they'll both stay purple. So, who's got the quickest one?
It's very annoying for me. I wasn't a big fan of it, to be honest. At first, it was quite cool to have something new, but then the more I looked at it, the more I compared actually to last year, it was just, the writing is a bit smaller, it's less clearer. Really not a fan of the driver numbers in the timing tower either. I prefer just knowing the teams because it just confuses it even more, but it's just a bit too much too soon. And again, the more I compare it to last year, it's just, I think last year was better. It was more clearer. And actually, to be honest, my favorite will always be like that 2016, 2017, so basic, so clean, no excess. It was just what we needed, nothing more. But yeah, I do hope that they tweak it. I hope they take the kind of advice on and kind of take a look at some of the criticisms that that the fans have. But it's Formula One, so you never know.
Yeah, and the other big genuine issue that was raised with it, I saw a couple of people raise it, is for those who have sight issues. There was already a hell of a lot of information up there, but it was clean, it was clear, it was distinct. Now, with it being quite small, slightly muted on the tones, the italics, makes it almost impossible for someone who has sight issues to read. And it's not fair to sort of basically keep them out of being able to enjoy it.
No, that's true. And I mean, looking at them, I think they're an okay baseline. But I just think they could be clearer and they could be better. By the way, it's amazing looking at some people in chat how offended people get when you A, have a different opinion, but B, when you talk about TV graphics that frankly don't even bloody matter. I'm one of those that love all the extra information. I agree that I like clean graphics and all of that, but I love the extra information. I like the picture-in-picture. I like seeing the tyre information up there, but I feel like it's a good start, but I think the text needs to be clearer. I think you need to go back to the colours rather than having driver numbers because they're not always clear. And I'm sure they'll tweak them because if you remember back in, I can't remember, it was 2018 when they made the changes to the graphics originally, when Liberty first kind of started to do that, and F1 made the changes. They started off and it was like, I think a lot of people like them, but the thought was, yeah, this needs to change and that needs to change. And over the next few races, things did change and they evolved to become what we saw last year. And I think it will probably be the same with this. Put them out there, test the water, make changes. Maybe not for Saudi, but maybe for Australia, and then changes again for Imola. I think they will change them. I don't think Liberty will sit there and ignore it. They do tend to listen to the fans on things that maybe don't matter. Anyway,
it just seems like they've done the background for all the new graphics, and then all of the numbers and things that go over the top they've done with 65% opacity. So it all kind of blends and blurs together a bit.
That's fair. I'm going to leave it there on graphics, though. I mean, they were glitchy all weekend, but I'm not surprised by that. That's a lot of information to put through new systems and new graphics like that, so not surprised to see them glitching. But yeah, a few people saying make the font a bit bigger and get the number out there. Nutella says it's visible, we can see it. Well, no, you can see it. As Jonty says, some people with sight issues might not be able to. If you're watching on a mobile, it's not as clear. I did have a little look afterwards on my Sky Go. It's not as clear. I'm sat here with a nice big TV. I could see it nice and clear, but it's not clear enough for a lot of people. So yeah, and I think we're missing some information we needed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you also have to assume that of the audience, far less than half, probably less than a third, have 40-inch or bigger TVs.
Yeah.
The vast majority will have 32-inch or even significantly smaller. Try watching them on that.
Yeah. Apparently Nutella watches on a 140-inch projector, which is, first of all, actually quite cool. But secondly, I'm not arguing with you, Nutella. I don't want to fall out with you over bloody TV graphics, for goodness sake. We're just offering an opinion. And I agree. Opinions are like arseholes. Everyone has one. Unless you don't, in which case I'm sorry. Probably shouldn't have said that. Sky Sports
Red Bull's got two running it.
What?
Red Bull. Red Bull's got two running him.
I'm trying to find a question quickly.
Sorry, I couldn't resist it.
Haas P3 in the constructors. Absolutely. Do you know when I wrote that? When I was typing it up, I was like, Jesus, that's so good. So nice to type them up there. Absolutely. So if you've got any other questions that aren't graphics related, yeah, I don't think they're bad. I just think they need tweaking. I don't think that's. But I preferred last year. But then I preferred Michael Schumacher dominating. So there you go. You get used to things. Red Bull Sal Patronus doesn't know what Banksy is. Google, my friend. Artist, but nobody knows who they are. I'll say they. Could be anybody. We don't know. It's too claustrophobic. Visor cam. There you go. William asking for about visor cam. I love that, Aldas. Visor cam. It's they've kind of stabilised it, haven't they, this year? A little bit more, and it's a really nice camera angle. And I think that's something that I'm looking forward to seeing. F1 upload to YouTube is some of the overtakes in visor cam and like both sides of that argument, if you like, of what's going on. I think that's a great addition.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I loved it. I think they were trying it a bit more with Leclerc at the end of last year in Abu Dhabi, and there's that. I think he was wearing it the entire race, and there was the video on F1 of him doing the entire first lap with the visor cam. So that was just incredible. And the fact that they're bringing in more for 2022 is also great. They didn't use it too much. They didn't use it they didn't underuse it as well. I thought it was actually a really good implementation. It's just about kind of nailing down the right angle, making sure that we can see as much of the track as possible. So probably one of the best things about kind of the show in terms of the entire broadcast, the broadcast of Formula One. So yeah, really happy with that.
Yeah, it's a good addition. And like, I mean, last year's I think George Russell's was a good example of like not quite set up right, wasn't the quite right angle. But yeah, I'm pleased with the visor cam, absolutely. Have you seen the video in which Leclerc and Verstappen's quality laps were compared with a real cool graphic in the middle? I haven't, Livo. I will check that one out afterwards. Thank you very much for that one. I can see Leclerc's nose in his cam. You can see the noses, Dylan. It's kind of, I find myself watching noses instead of what's happening, which is also an issue. I will get help, I promise. If Mercedes engine is slow, they will struggle in Saudi, says Andre. That's a very good point. Might even actually give us an answer on that engine, to be fair. If it's an engine problem, but I think we're going to have some drama this week. Now you've said that, Jonty, about the spec part and the fuel thing I'd forgotten about. I think we have some drama this week.
Oh, we could well do. It just depends if it's failed. If it's how Red Bull have installed it, no problem.
Yeah. Livo also wants to know what we think about the new intro. Super quickly, are you a fan, Aldas? I quite like it. Nice and fresh. A bit brighter.
God, I feel like I'm just all the negatives today. It was all right. The thing I didn't like actually was the driver pictures. They were so grainy and like really dark as well. So that was kind of a bit strange. But actually, wait, not the intro, but in terms of like the grid. That's what I was talking about. The intro was actually quite nice in terms of that video. But do you know that grid, the grid graphics when they show like who's on where? For a second, I thought you meant that. I wasn't a big fan of that, but the actual intro itself, yeah, I thought it was actually quite cool. Didn't mind that at all. But the Sky one was very cool. I really like that one where they had like the digital, it was kind of virtual reality F122 cars. That was a really nice one, actually.
You fan?
I don't want to be too negative. I feel bad now.
No, you'd be negative. It's not negative. It's an opinion. I agree on the grid. I preferred the older grid one. But again, they might tweak that. So. But there were a few things actually in the whole intro. I like the way they do the tyres now. So they pan out and it sort of goes from being quite dark to lighten up, doesn't it? And it's little bits like that are cool, but I'm not sure on the grid. But I like the intro itself, the bit with the music, if that makes sense. I know you're a big fan of the ITV one, Jonty.
Yeah, that was a classic. Oh, sorry, I just spotted something in the chat. Mickey6J. He's quite right. Did you see any tyre dead graphic?
Oh, the
AWS.
Yes.
It wasn't there at all.
Gone.
Did someone just forget, or is it really gone? Oh, please, really be gone.
The guy who was there that makes it up.
200 other graphics.
Yeah, the guy who was there that normally makes it up just wasn't in today. Maybe. Like 80%. How'd you get 80%, mate?
They lost the dice.
Max says the BBC intro is always the best. I actually, I was sat here and I popped the chain on to the new intro, for the Sky intro, I mean, and it was like, yeah, that's better with the chain. But I think everyth's better with the chain.
I think early 2010s BBC like production, that was absolute top tier, and it's never got even close to that.
Yeah. I can't believe we're stuck on intros. Sorry, I'm just thinking back to like the slightly rubbish ones in the early ITV days. The ones that were, I just find them a bit rubbish. I can't think of I don't know what the music was. I could picture them, but they weren't good. But yeah, I mean, I remember when they first released that song, the Formula One theme, and it was just very Pirates of the Caribbean, I thought, and a bit over the top. It soon fits, and it really. Yeah, I love it. I love the whole thing. I'm weird like that. Will we see Haas get more sponsors in the coming races? Says Son. It's looking good, isn't it, for Haas? They're saying they've got people very interested in the team. I think Martin Brundle was saying over the weekend that a lot of teams can almost have their pick of sponsors at the moment. So I fully expect to see sponsors start to appear on that car very soon, Jonty. Do you reckon they get a title sponsor this year? Or just a big sponsor for now?
I'm not sure, but they certainly haven't hurt their chances of getting a really big one with today's performance.
No. I'm surprised Jack and Jones aren't on the car yet, or Jack Jones aren't on the car yet, but maybe that's something they'll work on. I think they'll be fine. I'd be amazed if they don't get some sponsors on that car, to be honest. Nat Kilwell just asking now what we think the new title sponsor will be for Haas. We don't know at the moment, but I think they'll get somebody, because like you say, Jonty, 5th place today. And their pace in general, they'll find someone. And I think as well, maybe I'm wrong, but it helps that people are really, really behind K-Mag. That'll do them no harm at all. And I will say as well, just super quickly to add to this, and I don't know how you two feel, isn't it lovely from a Twitter user perspective to see Haas admin actually enjoying tweeting again and actually really getting involved and engaging more now that they feel they're able to, because they're less likely to get a crap ton of abuse for breathing.
Yeah. Him going has done them a lot of favours.
I love it. It's like he who shall not be named. Yeah, literally, the Haas team, like, they're now completely just buzzing. Like, they're posting memes after the race. It's brilliant to see kind of their creativity as well, because the smaller teams always have way more creative freedom than like a Ferrari or Mercedes, where it's so corporate. So yeah, seeing them, I remember Racing Point, their admin back in the day, they were absolutely amazing as well. So yeah, great to see. Yeah, the Haas admin probably had a bigger comeback than the car and the team itself.
Yeah, that's I like that. Yeah, Haas team had everybody has had a great comeback at Haas, and they're liked by people. And I mean, I always feel sorry for social media admin anyway, because they get abused. I learned that the hard way. You do forget there are people behind it. I remember during testing streams, second year we did them, and I got really angry because they took the stream down. So I atted F1 and told them to F off, and then got a message from the person that was running the socials that day, and they were like, first of all, please don't tell me to F off, Sean. I was like, oh my God. And I know the person, so I was like, oh my God, I feel terrible now. I just abused somebody for no reason. But you do forget, but it's not an excuse, I know. But they're fine, by the way. They're fine with me. And they got my stream back up, so that was good. One more then, super quickly.
I know it would never happen, but something that would be hilarious if Gene used his links and, acquaintance with Roger Penske to get IndyCar to sponsor the team. Can you imagine that? An F1 team sponsored by IndyCar. That would be hilarious.
That would be good. It'd be weird. Like Premier League sponsored by the NBA or NBA.
Yeah.
Like that, yeah. Anyway.
It's happened in other sports, because with the same bloody team, because Sauber got sponsored by Chelsea, if you remember.
Yeah, they did, didn't they? They did a partnership.
That was like their best seasons as well.
Yeah.
Agent Rogro.
But let's not talk too much about Chelsea. Adam Osborne, last question for today. Says, do you think it will be harder for drivers from the midfield to score podiums, as the top three will be very strong? See, again, it kind of depends, Adam, on what the midfield is and how much it shuffles. But I think, I'm just looking at the order now. So I think, Ferrari have got podiums because they've won today. Mercedes have got a podium with Hamilton. They will get podiums throughout the course of the season. Red Bull will be up there as well, picking up podiums. But I look at that and I can't. So I think Haas, they might need a bit of a crackers race, but I think Haas could be outsiders for a shock podium or a sneaky podium this year. You look at what Bottas has done this weekend. If they continue to grow, and again, maybe a little bit of a chaotic race, they could be in there. Alpine, I mean, Ocon won a race last year and Alonso got on the podium, so that's possible. We know Gasly could do it in Alpha Tauri. I think, based on the weekend, there's only Aston, Williams, and McLaren that I look at and go, probably not. But then I think McLaren get their act together, surely they're going to be in the hunt if they get it right as well. So I think the reason it's going to be tough to get a podium is going to be because it's going to be so competitive through the field. Maybe that's just my read, Aldas, but maybe I'm being really over the top with some teams there. But, we saw Ocon win last year. We saw Alonso on the podium. We saw, what was the podium in Monza when Gasly won? Gasly, Stroll, and Sainz.
Yep.
So there's no reason why they can't. But I think the field's so competitive that everyone's got an outside shot in a slightly chaotic race, which is quite exciting.
Yeah, you've got to remember it was Sainz there. I mean, his rather determined radio messages.
Yeah, we're allowed to forget
I
Sainz.
want this win, Dom. It sounded like he was going to kill someone.
Okay, I'll tell you what, Aldas, super quickly. Which team do you think will not get a podium this year? I can hear you swearing at me. It's fine.
For a sec, as a joke, I was just gonna say McLaren, but no, I think realistically Williams are gonna struggle. Like, they're clearly a team I think they're legitimately at the back, and I think they're gonna be one of the teams. I still think they'll score points, which I think is a big plus. But I think they're going to be the ones that are probably going to struggle a little bit. But every single season is crazy. There's always opportunities in every single race, especially when the weather gets wet or when perhaps with these brand new tires, we go to a track and the tire graining is crazy and it's like a 4-stop race. So you just never know. There's going to be opportunities for those teams, and it's just about kind of who picks them up. So, and also we've got to remember that the midfield teams are also going to be developing their cars the entire season. So maybe they're going to make a big jump up and kind of challenge the big team. So I'm fairly hopeful.
Awesome. I think Williams is a fair shout, to be fair.
Yeah. I'm going to stick with Aston. I think it's a bigger issue that they've got to get around with the car. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They probably have more pace in the car to be able to extract, but it's going to take them a lot more effort to fix that problem than Williams.
Yeah, I can see that. I'll say Ferrari. Oh no, I'm already wrong. What a shame. No, I think they're both. I'll tell you what, who knows? But we're going to wrap it up. There's no point. We can go over it again and start talking about, this is going to change week to week. But we're going to leave it there. We've been going, good Lord, 2 hours and 23 minutes. It's an F1 word hour, a proper F1 word hour. Thank you very much, Aldas, for popping in, for bonus Aldas. Always great to have you on, mate. And I think we've already chatted in DMs, but I'm hoping this won't be the last time for another year or two before you're on a stream again. But always a pleasure. And do you want to wrap up your appearance today with just some thoughts on the start of 2022?
Unbelievable to have F1 back. Really happy about that. So good to see Ferrari back. The fact that we potentially, if Mercedes improve, might have three teams legitimately fighting for consistent race wins. That just makes it even sweeter. A midfield where I don't even know who the 4th quickest team is right now. There's so much to be excited about with F1 in 2022. And also, yeah, glad to be back on the stream as well. So thank you very much. I'll see you in 2032 for the next one.
I was thinking a bit later than that, but yeah, that's fine. We can do that. Well, I'll make some space. And thank you as well, Jonty, as always. It's been a pleasure. It's kind of nice, isn't it? I think we said this again the other day in DMs. It's kind of nice to come full circle after that first stream we did on the 2021 regs and finally get to see them in action. So I guess my question to you, is it everything you'd hoped it would be? It's been a long wait.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think as fans we really could have asked for much more than we got. And it can only get better throughout the year, hopefully.
Fingers crossed, definitely. Yeah, thank you very much, Aldas. Thank you very much, Jonty. Always a pleasure, and I'm sure I'll talk to you both again soon.
Yep, bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much to Jonty and to Aldas, and of course to you guys as well for tuning in. That is race 1 down, done and dusted. Just the 22 still to go. Very excited for the rest of this season. Thank you very much as well to everyone. Just good numbers today. Thank you for the likes. We're over 1,000 now. Thank you for all your super chats. Don't forget to subscribe as well if you are new, and please do drop a like before you disappear. Always appreciated. Now I will be back on unless something happens, I'll be back on Thursday with the preview for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Same stuff again next weekend, and of course we'll be live shortly after the Grand Prix on Sunday with some more race reaction. In the meantime though, if you did enjoy this stream, then again, please do leave a like because it really is appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content in the coming days and weeks. Lots to come now. Like I say, 22 bloody races. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.